This isn't your usual Naruto. This is what happens when the village pushes the wrong kid too far. Beaten by the people he was supposed to call his home, Naruto is saved and taken away from the leaf. Then he meets Kami. Years of training turn the lonely kid everyone hated into something the village never could have imagined. He comes back stronger, colder, and completely done with being disrespected. They wanted Naruto to know his place. They're about to find out what his place actually is. Let's begin now. Chapter 13. Naruto was on his knees panting hard using Shadow Claw as a crutch. His mother was in the same boat, her gold swords both being used as crutches. The two had been training for a few weeks and Naruto had gained some new skills. He had learned to use Angel's Hand and Shadow Claw in unison, and without their power negating each other like it would normally do. He had also learned some techniques that used two swords. His speed with said moves had increased and so had his overall strength. "You've gotten better in the few weeks we've been together, son," Kushina said. "Now why don't you go see your friends? I bet you're curious about their progress." "Yeah, I am," Naruto said with a grin. "Thanks, Mom." Naruto sealed up the swords in his arms. Then he bowed to his mother and ran off to check up on his friends. Kushina smiled to herself. While he did this, she could spend some quality time with her husband. At another training ground, Sasuke was breathing hard as he got up from a crouching position. He stood in front of a large boulder with two large craters in it. His arm had a few scratches on it and he was almost out of chakra. "It looks like you're good for 2 bursts, Kakashi said as he looked at his student. "I can do more," Sasuke said as he rose up only for him to fall down slightly. "Don't even think about it, Sasuke," Kakashi said. "Even if you did have a bit more chakra, you can't do it more than twice. If you try to force a jutsu when you're low on chakra, not only will it send your chakra Dwan to 0, but it will also kill you." "I'd listen to the Cyclops if I were you, Sasuke," said a voice that surprised them. They both turned to see Naruto leaning against a tree with a smirk on his face. "Hey Sasuke," Naruto said. "How has your training been going?" "Fine," he said. "I've learned the Chidori and I'll be trying to lean the Raikiri next." "How about your sword training?" Naruto asked, wondering how Sasuke was coming along. "I've learned something from Zabuza," Sasuke said. "He taught me the vital spots on the body. I didn't want to learn the silent killing technique because it sounds a little bit annoying. I don't think I can keep quiet for that long. I also learned how to transfer my elemental affinities, which are fire and lightning, to my sword." "What about that?" Naruto asked, making Sasuke get serious. "Kakashi-sensei," Sasuke yelled. "Can I talk with Naruto alone for a minute?" "Okay," Kakashi said. He was wondering what he was talking about, but he decided not to pry since it was probably a clan matter. "My Onyx Sharingan has come along greatly," Sasuke said once Kakashi was out of hearing range. "I all 3 tomos right now." "All 3? Naruto gasped. "How did you manage to unlock the other 2 so quickly?" "I got my first one from the fight with Yoroi," Sasuke explained. "I guess the stress of the fight called for it. I'm not sure." "And the other one?" Naruto asked. Sasuke's face went grim. He growled slightly as he remembered. He then started to explain. Flashback. Sasuke had just come home from his first thing of training and was looking forward to some time to relaxation with Haku. When he entered the clan complex, he noticed something was odd. The door had been broken into and there were signatures inside he didn't recognize. He ran inside to find a sight that made his blood boil. The sight was Haku being held down by some ANBU with a blank mask and a kanji for root on it. On the ground was a hypodermic needle that was empty. Sasuke guessed that was what was keeping Haku from fighting back. Then he heard words that made Sasuke's blood pressure go through the roof. "Hold still, you slut," the ANBU growled. "Lord Danzo has use for you. You can reproduce ice soldiers for us to use, and I hear he'll let us keep you when we're done." Sasuke had enough at that statement and burst through the door, his Onyx Sharingan blazing. The ANBU turned his blank, masked face to him before his eyes widened. He saw the black eyes with a red pupil and 3 tomos in each. That was the last thing he saw before he burst into black flames. Sasuke ran over to Haku to see if she was all right. He smiled when he found she hadn't been touched. Haku looked up and smiled at him before they kissed. End flashback. Naruto was quiet and then he started to seethe. He couldn't believe that someone would try to do that. It was also surprising that someone was able to get close to Haku without her either turning them into a human pincushion or into a life-sized ice sculpture. Sasuke then explained that the only reason that Anbu had gotten close to her was that he had disguised himself and had suppressed his chakra, so that she thought that he had come home early to surprise her. Naruto, still in shock at that, began to think when he realized something. "Isn't Danzo that guy on the council?" he asked, getting Sasuke to raise an eyebrow. "Yeah, I think he is," Sasuke said. Then he realized something. "I'll take this to the Hokage," Sasuke said after a few seconds of silence. "It's my girlfriend, it's my problem." Sasuke and Naruto both nodded at each other, and then they went their separate ways. Naruto walked on for a little bit until he came across Shikamaru and his dad in a field. Shikamaru actually seemed to be panting and was sweating. Had the Nara actually started to work? "Shikamaru?" Naruto said as he got closer. "Are you actually working?" Shikamaru nodded at his friend. "It's a sign of the apocalypse. Run. Hide your children. We're all going to die." The Nara in front of him just shook their heads and muttered troublesome under his breath. As it turns out, Shikamaru had been trained with some of his clan techniques. His dad was persuaded by his wife to train him. By persuaded I mean that his wife had come at him with a frying pan, threatening to bash his brains out and have him sleep on the couch for a month before she would let them sleep in the same bed. Since then, the lazy man has been training his lazy son. Naruto had to shake his head as he heard that. Naruto left the two to their own training. Naruto ran around until he found Sakura with Lee on one of the training grounds. He found them in a very surprising position. Sakura was sitting in Lee's lap and they were currently making out. Naruto noted a few craters and dents in the ground, so he guessed that they had both been training. Sakura had learned some medical stuff and had been Lee's personal nurse while he healed from the beating Naruto gave him. After that, you couldn't even separate the two. Naruto just smirked and left the two to their own devices. Naruto didn't even bother looking for the Suna siblings. Naruto found Ino at the flower shop her dad owned. He walked in and found himself instantly hugged by his girlfriend. "So how's your training been coming along, Foxy?" she asked with a raised eyebrow. Naruto had told Ino about the fox some time during the breaks between training. She had been upset that the village had treated him like they did since his dad wanted him to be seen as a hero. She would have gone out and tried to do something stupid if Naruto hadn't given her a calm-down kiss. "Just fine," Naruto said. "My mom's been training me non-stop ever since the second round, though she and Dad had something to do before they did. I don't know what it was, but I had the sudden feeling that someone was going to be in a world of hurt." Ino just giggled and held Naruto close to her. "Well," Ino said, "I've been training too. My dad's been training me in some of the other Yamanaka clan moves. I've even learned a few taijutsu moves and my genjutsu had gone up a bit." "Nice," Naruto said, hugging his girlfriend. "Well, I got to go," he said. "I have to go meet another sensei for training. Let me know how it goes," Ino called after him as he left. Naruto left and went home. When he got there, he found Tobirama and Hashirama conversing with two other people. And a pig. The first of the two was a tall blonde woman with a blue diamond tattooed on her forehead. With her was a slightly shorter brunette. Both of them were in talking happily with the toe while the pig just sat down at the feet of the brunette. The pig was actually the first one to notice Naruto in the room and it walked over to him. Naruto smiled and reached down and petted the small animal. It was then that the brunette noticed the pig was gone and looked around. She saw the pig being petted by Naruto and smiled. "Oh, Naruto," Hashirama said as he looked over. "Glad to see you're home." "Glad to be home, I guess," Naruto said. "Who are these two and the pig?" "Well," Hashirama said, "the blonde is my granddaughter Tsunade and the other girl is Shizune, her assistant. The pig is Tun-Tun." "So," the blonde said, "you're my godson, huh?" "Yes," Naruto said. "Yes, I am." The blonde woman was silent, but then he walked forward and hugged him. Naruto held her and returned the hug. "I'm sorry I wasn't there for you," she said. "I thought that you had died thanks to the pains on the council." "It's okay," her godson said. "Besides, I have a source inside Danzo's group. I think I might have a way to bring those pains in the butts down." "Good," Tsunade said. "I just have one condition, that when the time comes to execute them, that I get to be the one who crushes their skulls." "Naruto," Minato said, walking in the room. "There you are. I was looking for you. Tomorrow your training with me starts." "Got it, Pops," Naruto said before turning, then he stopped. Oh, I almost forgot. In the time that Mom wasn't training me, I came up with some of my own jutsu. I think you'll be interested to see them. What are you gonna need new jutsu for? Tsunade asked. Well, Naruto said, I think that the Sound and Sand villages are trying to take out Konoha. I came up with a few new techniques so that I'll be able to surprise them. Plus, if my suspicions about that dang snake are correct, then I'm going to need all the help that I can get. Naruto nodded to the group as he walked out of the room to go relax for a while. As he left, Tsunade raised an eyebrow. What did he mean by that? She asked. You should sit down, granddaughter, Hashirama said. This is going to be a long explanation. The girls sat down at the first Hokage explained. First of all, he said, Naruto was taken to heaven by Kami to train under us, while their Kami gave him a mission. A mission that, if not completed, could spell a lot of trouble for everyone. I can't tell you what it is though, as I am sworn to secrecy. However, at the end of the Chunin exams, if our suspicions are correct, then you will learn for yourself. Tsunade would have pressed the issue, but she knew from her family line that her grandfather would be very stern about the subject. If there was one thing that the Senju clan was known for, it was that they were as stubborn as mules. She just mentally sighed and went to the kitchen so she could get a bottle of sake. The next day, Naruto was running alongside his father to the spot where their training would take place. He followed his father to a large and very spacious river with a waterfall. Okay, Naruto, the man said. Here I'll teach you one of the Namikaze clan's most prestigious jutsu, the Rasengan. What's that, old man? Naruto asked. His dad bristled slightly as that he wasn't really that old. Instead of making some snappy comeback, he held out his hand and slowly a spinning ball of chakra formed in his hand. Naruto stared at the technique. Minato then turned around, charged at a nearby tree. He shoved the pinning ball of chakra forward and ground a huge dent in the side of the trunk. Naruto stared at the damage that had happened. Now, Minato said, there are 3 steps to using this technique. First, you must be able to focus a large amount of chakra into your hand. After that, you have to be able to form it into a ball. Then finally, you must be able to hold it in that form for as long as it takes you to do so. Naruto nodded at his father and began to do so. Naruto may have had a lot of training over years by the Kages, but he had a little bit of trouble with chakra control every now and again. He basically just focused his chakra into his hand. Unfortunately, he didn't want to unseal any of the chakra seals on him, so he had some trouble with it at first. After a few days of practice, he got it down. The day after that, Minato came by with a box of balls. Okay, Minato said. For this you have to form the chakra into the form of the ball. To do this, it will take extreme focus and a lot of hard work. The hard part isn't getting the chakra into the ball, the hard part is trying to get the ball to stay in one piece. Naruto took a ball and tried to form a ball of chakra with it, but it didn't go well at first. The first few times he tried, the ball burst, and other times he just didn't get enough in there. After a few more days of trying, he actually got the chakra to form a ball. The day after that, Minato showed up with a box of balloons. Now for the toughest part yet, he said. For this you have to be able to pump the ball of chakra and hold it without the balloon bursting. You have to keep the chakra under control until you can manage to get it. Once you've done this, you can form the Rasengan. Naruto just nodded. Took him a lot of tries. Took him forever to do this one. The balloons that he had used almost always burst. It took him a lot of time and balloons to get this down. When he was on the last one, this one actually stayed intact. Naruto smirked as he saw this. He then formed a Rasengan with his own hands and launched at a tree. The result was the same amount of damage his father had done to the tree that he had practiced on. Minato had just arrived to check on Naruto's progress and saw his son master in a few weeks what took him years to develop. He smiled to himself. He always knew that his son had been destined for greatness. Naruto, Minato said, getting his son's attention. There is something you should know. That move is incomplete. What do you mean by that, Dad? Naruto asked. After I first made the Rasengan, he explained, I had intended to fuse it with my elemental affinity. Doing so would create a whole new technique. I didn't get a chance to do this because of the Kyuubi attack. Naruto, I leave this to you. Complete the Rasengan and show them what it means to be a Namikaze. Naruto nodded at his father and the two went home. After studying a technique that cold crush someone was actually very exhausting. When Naruto got home, he was asleep before he even hit the pillow. Naruto spent the rest of his time training with his dad in taijutsu and a little bit ojinjutsu. It never really was his strong point, and he had gotten help from Tobirama in that department. After a few weeks of relaxing and working out, it was time for the tournament. Everyone gathered in the arena. The Kazekage and Sarutobi sat in the Kage box. With him were the other fire shadows, but one could tell it was them because they all had hoods on and hid their faces very well. In the arena, Gaara, Temari, Kankuro, Naruto, Neji, Shino, Shikamaru, and Sasuke all stood in the center of the arena. Sasuke would have been late, but he had gotten over his ego and wasn't as self-centered as used to be. "Welcome," Sarutobi announced, "to the finals for the Chunin exams. The contestants in the arena will fight for the right to be called Chunin and to become one step closer to their dreams if they have one. For those of you who did not make it this far, there is always next year. Now, let the tournament begin." "All right," the proctor, a man with bandana around his head and sunbon in his mouth, said. "I'm Ganma, the proctor for this part of the exam. Will the combatants Naruto Uzumaki and Neji Hyuga please come forward?" Neji and Naruto both came forward. As they did this, the other combatants went up to the fighter's box to stay out of the way. "You might as well give up," Neji said. "I'm fated to win this match." Naruto sighed. This guy was as cold as ever. Though Hinata did manage to learn the Hyuga clan's main moves, she was still viewed as weak for her heart by some of the Hyuga council. Hayashi now had a better view of his daughter, and that did make Naruto happy. He was just glad that he wouldn't have to worry about her being branded with the caged bird seal. "Proctor," Naruto said, unsealing Angel's hand from his arm. "Start the match, so I can just shut this pain in the butt up. I mean, no one wants to hear it." "All right," Genma said. "Begin." Neji activated his Byakugan and charged at Naruto, who just stepped to the side. Naruto swung Angel's hand, and Neji barely managed to duck underneath the swing. Neji would have gotten a strike in with a Gentile fist strike, but Naruto managed to jump away, his sword still in his grip. "That was a close one," Naruto said out loud. In the Kage booth, Sarutobi beamed in pride, as did Naruto's hidden mother and father. This was proving to be quite a show. The Kazekage, aka Orochimaru in disguise, mentally snarled. He was pretty pissed that this kid had hurt him in the forest. He would make him pay. Oh yes, he would pay. It took a few moments, but he managed to calm down. It seemed that none of the other people in the booth noticed. At least that's what he thought. Tobirama and Hashirama noticed from the shadows where they were hidden. They knew what Naruto had told them was right. Back in the ring, Naruto was focusing chakra into his sword. He drew it back and swung it. Angel slash. A blast of gold chakra was sent flying off, and Neji was right in its path. Neji then took up a stance and spun like top, yelling, "Rotation!" "Father," Hanabi gasped in the stands. "That was the—" "I know, dear," Hayashi said. "Such talent wasted on the branch family." "You should be proud," Neji said. "A mere commoner has never forced me to use my strongest defense before." "Blah, blah, blah," Naruto mocked. "My greatest defense. You know something, I think it's time that I showed you that even the strongest defense can be broken." Naruto took his sword and then stabbed it into the ground behind him. Then he went through hand signs so fast that Neji could see all of them. "Light style, light needle rain." Naruto took in a deep breath and shot multiple glowing needles from his mouth toward Neji. The boy just smirked and used his rotation technique. When Neji stopped spinning, everyone gasped at what they saw. Neji had holes in his clothes. The rotation had been broken. "How?" Neji asked in clear shock. "How did a commoner like you manage to get through my clan's greatest defense?" "A move like the rotation," Naruto explained, "is made to deflect weapons and burst of elements infused with chakra. However, if you take pure chakra and send it at the move, it can easily pierce it." Neji growled. Where did he manage to learn a technique like this? "Oh, in Neji," Naruto said. "If you're wondering how I managed to get a technique that could pierce you move, I made it myself." Everyone was floored. Naruto had made a jutsu like that. How was it even possible? The Konoha ninja made a mental note to grill him about this later. "And this," Naruto said as he started going through hand signs, "is something else that I made myself. Wind style, mega roar." Naruto took in a deep breath and let out a massive roar. This one shook the ground beneath them and made visible sound waves. Neji clutched his ears. He didn't notice it, but the force of the sound wave was causing him to be pushed back a bit. Finally, Niji was sent flying into the wall on the other side of the arena. Niji met it with a loud crash. Niji fell to the ground and then rose back up, coughing up a bit of blood. He had never felt a pain like this. Naruto picked up his sword and walked over to the fallen Hyuga. Then he lifted the pale-eyed boy up by the top of his shirt. "You know what I find very stupid?" Naruto asked the boy. "Is that you hate someone who has done you no wrong. I mean, in the fight during the prelims, couldn't Hinata have used the caged bird seal on you? I remember her saying that she hates it more than the Branch family does. Of course, given how blind you people can be when it comes to this stuff, I am not really surprised." Niji just glared at Naruto until the realization hit him like a massive cinder block. "Proctor, call the match," Naruto said. "I don't think he can fight anymore." "All right," Ganma said. "The winner is Naruto Uzumaki." The crowd erupted into cheering. As they did, Naruto leaned in and whispered into his ear. "Niji," Naruto said, "I know you have a thing for Tenten. You might want to ask her out now before she winds up off the market. Oh, and in case you don't have any idea how to get past that seal, you could try to counter it some way." Niji now felt like he should have beaten himself over the head with a rock because of how obvious it was that he and Branch family should have done that years ago when the seal was first put on them. Only right now was when he realized it. Although he did have the decency to blush when his crush on Tenten was brought up. Niji was carried off by the medics and Naruto walked up to the fighter's box. "Nice one, Naruto," Sasuke said, smirking. "Thanks," Naruto said. "Just don't lose to Gaara when it's time for you two to fight. I want to be the one to kick you, but—" "All right," Ganma said. "Due to certain actions, the fights have been rearranged. Will Temari Sabaku and Shikamaru Nara come down?" Temari flew out on her fan while Shikamaru went to the stairs. "You're actually going to go down there and fight?" Naruto asked. "My mom would kill me for not going down there," Shikamaru said. "Besides, my dad taught me some moves that I want to test out." The Nara walked down the stairs at a slow speed to annoy Temari. When he arrived, the annoyance was showing on her face. "What the heck took you so long?" Temari growled. "It was just too troublesome to run," the boy replied, making a lot of people in the stands sweat drop. "Okay," Ganma stated. "The match between Temari Sabaku and Shikamaru Nara. Begin." Temari jumped back and opened her fan, and swung it, yelling, "Wind Scythe Jutsu!" With surprising agility and speed, the boy dodged the move. He crouched down and reached for something behind his back. In the stands, Kudene's eyes widened when Shikamaru pulled out a pair of trench knives. "Where did he get those?" she asked. "I gave them to him," Asuma said. "He came to me saying that he needed to train for the exams. I think his mother had something to do with it. Anyway, I gave him those since he had a feeling he would need a weapon to fight her, so I taught him the only weapon I knew." Kurenai nodded in understanding. She also knew that the lazy boy's mother could be a very good motivator when the time came. In the ring, Shikamaru charged with his trench knives drawn and swung. Temari jumped back. She smirked and swung her fan to send out another gust of wind, but was surprised when she saw that her fan had been cut. She looked down and saw that Shikamaru's shadow had extended and cut through it. A copy of his arm with the trench knife present in its grip. "How did you do that?" she asked. "I knew that most of your attacks come from that fan," Shikamaru said. "So I used my family's shadow blade technique to slice it." "How did you get this good?" she asked. "When I saw you fight in the prelims, you were just some lazy punk. How did you get this good?" "Simple," Shikamaru said with a smirk. "I had some very interesting motivation." His mom threatened to beat his head in with a frying pan, Naruto yelled from the fighter's box. "Darn you, Naruto," the young Nara yelled. Temari took advantage of the distraction and threw a few shuriken at the distracted Nara/Shikamaru. However, saw this coming and easily managed to duck. He then went through hand signs and called out, "Shadow Possession Jutsu." Shikamaru's shadow snaked away from him and connected with Temari's. She young woman found herself trapped. Shikamaru reached for one of the two weapons pouches on his belt. The action made Temari do the same. The Nara boy rose the kunai up to his throat and positioned it to where the slightest movement would cut it. Temari was in the same position. "You know you want to say it," the male Nara said with a grin. I forfeit," Temari said, defeated. "Winner, Shikamaru Nara," Ganma announced. In the stands, Asuma held out a hand to Kakashi, who handed him 200 ryo. The two had made a bet before the matches. Kakashi said that Shikamaru would forfeit the match if he ran out of chakra. Asuma bet that the lazy Nara would actually win. As the lazy Nara made his way to the fighter's box, his mother and father watched him proud smiles. "He won," Shikaka Nara said. "What a drag. Looks like I'll have to up his training." "Looks like you'll have to," his wife Yoshino said. Elsewhere in the stands, Shikamaru's two teammates were in absolute shock. "I can't believe he actually won," Ino said in disbelief. "That cuts it," Chuji said. "I'm going to see if I can get some training in clan techniques from my dad." "Okay," Gamma called out as Tamari and the Nara went back up to the fighter's box. "Will Kankuro Sabaku and Shino Aburame come down?" "Darn it," Kankuro thought. "I'm not supposed to reveal my puppet techniques until after the fight with Gaara." He would have withdrawn, but a quick sign from his sensei Baki told him to fight. To the sign, Kankuro gave a very discreet nod. The two fighters proceeded down to the ring to begin their fight. The match between Kankuro Sabaku and Shino Aburame. Begin. Both competitors stood still for a moment until bugs started to flow from Shino's arms. The young Aburame shot a stream of them at Kankuro. Kankuro dodged to the side. Then his pack unraveled to reveal a large puppet. It was human-like look, only with 6 eyes. It also had 6 arms and had a hunch in its back. "Time to fry Bug Boy," the puppet master said. The puppet then sprang to life and charged at the young Aburame. Sino dodged to avoid it, but one of its extra arms hot out. Its hand folded upwards and a spike came out that was dripping with poison. Shino managed to bring up a wall of bugs to stop it. It managed to, but just barely. Shino ran to the left, shooting off another swarm of bugs. The puppet Kankuro was using jumped back in front of its master and opened its mouth. A small cloud of poison came out of its mouth. Shino saw it and asked the queen to return the others. The bugs outside returned. Kankuro's puppet closed its mouth and shot forward again, swinging all 6 arms. As it did, small blades, each lacking poison, came out of its arms. Shino dodged most of them, but one caught his shoulder. "Looks like I overestimated you, Bug Boy," Kankuro gloated. "I guess I should just end this now and save you some suffering." Shino glared at his opponent. Though with the sunglasses and a collar that covered most of his face, it was really hard to tell. The puppet opened its mouth and shot out a small black ball. It hit the ground near Shino and exploded in a purple cloud. "A poison bomb," Naruto muttered. "This guy's been aiming to kill Shino." In the stands, Shibi Aburame was currently nervous. He was currently scared for his son. If you had looked close enough, you would have seen a bead of sweat running down the side of his face. In the arena, the cloud started to clear. As it did, it showed the young Aburame on his knee, breathing hard. It was obvious that he had breathed in the poison. "Ha!" Kankuro laughed. "I told you that I would." He didn't finish his sentence as he fell to one knee as well. He is panting hard. My chakra." He mentally groaned, realizing that he had been drained of chakra. "But how? He never got any of those little insects on me." "Looks like you underestimated me," Shino groaned as he looked at his equally winded adversary. Kankuro glared at the boy until he felt something crawling on his arm. He looked down and saw a few small bugs skittering across his hand. "What?" he asked out loud. "When did you manage to get those on me?" "When I shot off my first swarm of bugs," Shino explained. "I managed to get a female beetle on your head. The female acts as a homing beacon to all males. From then, I just had to disperse a few bugs, and a few males followed the scent." Kankuro thought. "He's been playing me the whole time." With that last thought, the puppet user collapsed from chakra exhaustion and Shino passed out. Genma announced the match was tie, and the medic came down and took the 2 boys to the infirmary. Shibi ran down to the infirmary to neutralize his son's poison. He knew that Shino's bugs were probably doing the same thing that he was going to do, but he needed to be there for his little boy. Naruto watched his friend get taken to the infirmary. "I hope the guy makes it," he said. "I don't want one of my future allies in the field to get killed by some cheap poison trick." "For once, Naruto," Sasuke said, "you and I are in total agreement." "Now for the next match," Gunma announced. "Will Gaara Sabaku and Sasuke Uchiha come down?" A lot of people had come for this match. Others had come to see Naruto fight so they could watch the so-called demon brat die. They did, however, want to see how the great Uchiha had come in his training, so they could use him to defeat the demon and avenge the yondaime. My word, these people are complete and total imbeciles. Gaara grinned savagely and disappeared and reappeared in a swirl of sand. Sasuke just jumped down and landed across from the sand user. Uchiha, Gaara growled. Mother desires your blood, and as a good boy I will give it to her. You want my blood? Sasuke smirked. You're going to have to tear it from my cold, lifeless corpse. Now, Gunma started. The match between Gaara Sabaku and Sasuke Uchiha. Begin. Gaara made the first move, forming a clone completely made out of sand. Sasuke sped forward. He moved faster than most of them could see. Guy, however, recognized the speed and the technique. You gave him Lee's speed, he stated, looking at Kakashi. Why? We both knew that someone as fast as Lee could get past that defense of Gaara's, Kakashi explained. I had to teach him this so he could stand a chance. He also picked up some other tricks that I won't really go into right now. In the ring, Gaara brought up some sand to strike Sasuke, but the Uchiha got past it and slammed his fist, cracking the sand armor on his face. Sasuke jumped back and clutched his hand. He has sand-forming armor on his skin, Sasuke thought. Looks like I'll have to add more chakra behind my punches if I want to get away with my hands intact. Sasuke focused some chakra into his hands to try to lessen the damage he would take when he punched Gaara's armor again. In the fighter's box, Temari was shocked. He actually got past Gaara's defense, she gasped. How did he manage that? Looks like he prepared for it, Naruto said. He must have trained in his speed to be fast enough to get past that sand defense. I wonder what else Kakashi-sensei taught him. Back in the ring, Gaara was getting hit a lot. He backed up a bit and started to laugh. Finally, he said out loud, I get an opponent who can truly test me. I'm sick of having to fight weaklings. He shot out some more sand at Sasuke. The boy just grinned and took out a scroll, unsealing a golden sword. Sasuke grinned and charged again. This time he appeared behind Gaara and a massive slash mark appeared across Gaara's chest. The sand user screamed in pain. That cut hurt more than it should have. In case you're wondering, Sasuke said to the boy, this sword is able to have chakra transferred through it. That means I can increase the damage of a sword attacks. It also means that I can do this. Sasuke focused chakra into his sword and it burst into flames. The charged and swung the now flaming hot sword. Burning glory. The flaming slash ran across Gaara's chest, invoking another scream of pain. He backed up a bit, trying to recover form the massive burn mark that now covered his chest. He groaned in pain and fell to one knee. The entire crowd was grinning at the strength the Uchiha was showing. They were thinking that they could finally kill the demon when they convinced the Uchiha to do it. They began to whisper among themselves. Finally, we can use the Uchiha to kill the demon, or we can finally take care of the demon and avenge our loved ones. Or the demon can finally get what's coming to him. All these were whispered, and others. Unknown to them, the yondaime and all the others heard what they were saying to each other. They all growled mentally. I was an idiot for actually trusting these people, Minato thought bitterly. Oh, how far has my village fallen? Hashirama and Tobirama both thought at the same time. Kushina was too upset to think, because then she might have physically growled, and then her cover would have been blown. He did, however, glare at the people who were talking so negatively about her son. She was going to have a long talk with people who were back in the ring. Gaara rose to both feet and groaned. Uchiha, Gaara snarled. You've hurt me badly. You will pay. You will meet mother. Gaara then took all the sand that he could find in the arena and formed a thick dome of sand. Outside of the dome, he formed an eye that watched what was going on outside of it. Oh man, Temari thought. He's going to use that. Baki was have similar thoughts, except he was using words that I can't tell you. And I have a bit of problems with cursing, so I don't usually put it in my stories. Sorry to those of you who are expecting it. Anyway, back to the show. Sasuke growled and then he shot at the dome. His punch made contact, but the dome didn't break. Sasuke pulled back his hand to reveal a set of bloody knuckles. Sasuke then smirked. He jumped up and landed on the side of the wall. Then he went through hand signs. As he did, chakra started to focus in his hand, and the sound of birds chirping filled the air. What is that? Sakura asked, seeing the move. It's called a jab, Guy said, hearing the girl's question. This jab, however, is used mostly for assassinations and to kill its target instantly. It's also the only move in Kakashi's arsenal that he didn't copy. It's called Chidori, 1,000 birds. Sasuke now held a small thing of lightning in his hand. He moved his arm to the side and a crater formed in where his arm moved. Then he shot down the wall, hit the ground and ran forward toward the sand dome. As he thrust the technique forward, it pierced through the sand. He actually got thought Gaara's ultimate defense, Temari said, clearly in shock of this. In the sand dome, Sasuke's arm was connected to Gaara's shoulder. The sand user was in shock. At that moment, he felt something warm running down his shoulder. Blood. He thought, my blood. Gaara let out a piercing scream. Sasuke jumped back from the dome as a freakishly deformed arm shot out and narrowly missed the young Uchiha. Sasuke looked through the hole in the sand and saw a strange yellow eye with a diamond-shaped iris that was yellow and for small stars on each side. Then white feathers began to fall all around the arena. As they did, a lot of people put their hands together and yelled, Kai! Then there was an explosion in the Kage booth. Naruto grinned. Konoha! He yelled. Prepare for war! A genjutsu began to fall over the arena. Sakura ran around and woke up as many ninja in the arena as she could. Naruto and Sasuke released themselves from the genjutsu as well. A bunch of sound ANS and ninja jumped into the arena and charged at them. Sasuke whipped out his katana and swung, decapitating one. He didn't feel right killing, but he knew now wasn't the time to be self-conscious. Naruto took out Angel's hand and cut down a few ninja himself. Sakura had to fight a few. She most knocked them out with a few well-placed punches. A few ninja charged at Shikamaru, who Sakura had just woken up. He went through hand signs and yelled, Shadow tendrils! The shadows around him shot toward the enemy ninja. The tendrils wrapped around their throats and slowly choked them to death. Shikamaru felt bile coming up in his throat but managed to hold it down. As the fighting was going on, Temari grabbed Gaara and started to make a dash for it. Naruto noticed the two getting away. Sasuke! Naruto yelled. Gaara and his sister are getting away. I'm going after them. You stay here and take down as many of them as you can. Sasuke growled that he wouldn't be able to fight Gaara, but he knew that he probably would have won if the invasion hadn't gotten in the way, so he let it slide. Naruto took off in the direction of the two sand ninja. Kakashi and Guy soon joined the fray and started knocking people around left and right. Meanwhile, the Kage booth exploded in a blast of smoke. The Kazekage threw off his robes to reveal that it was Orochimaru in disguise. He jumped back and glared at his old teacher. Time to die, Sarutobi, the snake said with a vicious grin. An ANBU jumped out of the side to try and attack the snake Sannin, but he was intercepted by one of Orochimaru's guards. 3 others popped up and they all threw off their robes. One was a fat man with red hair, another was man with another guy sticking out of his back, another was a man that had 6 arms, and the third was a girl with red hair. These are the sound for, Orochimaru explained. They are my elite guards and they will be Tohuans to help me kill you, old man. The 2 Kage-level fighters jumped to the roof of the building so they could get more room to fight. The sound ninja 4 went to the corners of the building, but they were intercepted by 4 cloaked figures. They were then knocked back with incredible strength. Who are they? Orochimaru asked. The old man in front of him smirked as the threw of Hia's Kage robe and hat revealing his battle armor. Some old friends of mine, was what the old man answered. The figures then threw off their cloaks. Orochimaru, if he could have, paled, and so did his elite guards. The ANBU around the building all looked shocked at what they saw. In front of the sound ninja 4 stood the 1st, 2nd, and 4th Hokages, along with a strong-looking redhead. Oh, Orochimaru started. Crud! The sound ninja 4 finished for him. Minato grinned like a fool and yelled to the heavens, We're back! Meanwhile, in another part of the village, a sound ninja screamed as his arm was ripped off. Zabuza jumped back as a few shuriken hit the ground next to him. He swung his golden cleaver and took off the head of the ninja who threw them at him. Zabuza sensed another presence and turned around to see Haku sending a lot of throwing needles at a bunch of sound ninja, each one hitting in a vital spot. Zabuza smirked as he saw his daughter take down a bunch of ninja like a professional assassin. In another part of the village, multi-sized jutsu. Chusa Akamichi grew to a massive size and using his staff crushed a few ninja like insects. Nearby, his friend Inoichi Yamanaka was going through hand signs. Mind destruction jutsu. The sand ninja he was fighting suddenly stopped attacking him and went after his own comrades. Meanwhile, Shikaku Nara was going through hand signs, shadow strangle jutsu. The shadows he used to capture his enemies went up and strapped around his throat, slowly choking him to death. "This is a sight to see," Shikaku said. "Yeah," Inoichi said. The original Ino Shikacho trio back together. All over the village, the clans were doing their best to keep their home safe. The civilians mostly spent their time hiding. I mean, really, these people need to learn how to throw a punch or something. Most of the civilians and children in the academy were hidden in a secret base in the Hokage monument. Meanwhile, with Naruto was still giving chase to the brother and sister. Eventually, the two stopped to take a breather. They had thought they had lost whoever that was following them. "Gaara?" Temari asked as they stopped. "Are you okay?" "Mother," Gaara growled. "Mother wants to come out." "Temari, get out of here." "What?" she asked. "Temari?" Gaara groaned, clutching his head. "Sister, Mother has killed many people. I don't want you to be next." Temari was thrown for a loop when he heard Gaara call her his sister. He never called her that. She felt tears burn in her eyes as she turned and ran. Her little brother really did care for her. Truth be told, Gaara had a temporary moment of sanity as Shikaku tried to take over. It was rare for him, and he decided to show Temari that he wasn't all that much of a monster. After Temari got away, Naruto showed up. He saw Gaara hunched over and clutching his head. "Dude, what's wrong with you?" Naruto asked. He decided to get closer. It turned out to be a mistake as he was suddenly bashed away by an incredibly strong arm swing by Gaara. Naruto hit the branch behind him. He groaned as he got up and saw that the sand in Gaara's gourd was slipping out and covering him. "Uzumaki?" Gaara snarled the sanity from a few minutes ago. "Mother could have the blood of the Uchiha, so she will have your blood instead." The sand around Gaara wrapped around most of his face and his right arm. The result was a mutated, deformed arm forming. It had a bit of blue in certain spots. The sand then formed a massive raccoon-like tail just below above his backside. "I was right," Naruto said. "You do have that overgrown raccoon." "So you know of my demon," Gaara growled. "It won't save you. I will kill you and claim your blood for Mother." Gaara sent a plume of sand at Naruto, who managed to dodge the attack. Naruto focused his chakra and sent out a blast of wind chakra at Gaara. The sand was blown away, leaving Gaara wide open. Naruto rushed in and shot out a kick that knocked Gaara into the air. Naruto jumped up and yelled, "Wolf Barrage!" Gaara was hit with a series of punches and kick and was sent crashing through the tree branch he was standing on a few seconds earlier. Gaara rose up as Naruto landed across from him. The blonde cracked his knuckles and smirked at the sand boy. "Gaara," Naruto said, "we don't have to do this. But if you insist on fighting, then I will tear you down." "You are strong, Uzumaki," Gaara growled as he rose up and more sand covered him, covering a bit more of him to his left shoulder. "I have finally found the fight that will push me to my limit. Ninja art. Sand shuriken." Gaara sent out some shuriken made out of sand at Naruto. Naruto went through hand signs himself and yelled out, "Water style, water jet stream." Naruto shot out a jet blast of water from his mouth, soaking the sand shuriken and making them fall to the ground in clumps. The water then struck Gaara, who yelled as he was sent flying back and hit another tree. Naruto took advantage of this and went through more hand signs. "Lightning style, thunder burst." Naruto's hands erupted into electricity and sent out a volt of electricity that shocked Gaara, making him scream in pain again. Gaara got up shakily and growled at the boy who had dared hurt him. He growled and more sand flowed out of his gourd. Now he was almost completely covered in the sand except for his shins. He also started to take a resemblance to the Shikaku. Naruto growled. This just kept getting better and better. Gaara rushed at Naruto, yelled, "Wind bullet!" Gaara slammed an arm on his chest, sending out a blast of wind at Naruto. Naruto didn't have time to react and was blown back into a tree. Naruto groaned in pain. He got up, then he jumped out of the way to avoid a clawed hand going for his face. Gaara's mutated arm crushed the tree that was behind him. Naruto spun around and pumped chakra into his hands. He charged forward and unleashed a powerful combo on Gaara. The sand Jinchuriki stumbled back with each punch. "Come on, big man," Naruto yelled. "Show me what you got. Show me what you got." Gaara grabbed Naruto's fist in a deformed fist and glared at him. "Well, okay then," Naruto said, looking a little nervous. Gaara drew back his other arm and sent Naruto flying. He was sent through 2 trees. Despite his pain, Naruto got up and winced a bit. Man, he said, thinking out loud. I hope that everyone else is having an easier time than I am. Meanwhile, back at the village, Sarutobi jumped to the side to avoid a sword entering his head. The fight with him and Orochimaru was pretty much even. The snake Sannin had brought out the sword Kasangi and was hacking at the old fire shadow. At the same time, Sarutobi had summoned the Monkey King Enma. The monkey boss then took the form of his weapon, the adamant staff. The two were currently clashing weapons. Though the Monkey King was currently made of a very hard substance, the sword still hurt him, so Sarutobi was trying to keep him from killing him. Meanwhile, the former Kages and Kushina were just biding their time until they had to intervene. Hashirama was fighting Jirobo, the fat guy, Taburma was fighting Sukon and Yukon, the 2 Siamese twin guys, Minato was goofing around with Kidamaru, the spider-like guy, and Kushina was taking on Tayuya, the only girl on the team. All while they were fighting, Tayuya was cursing Kushina out. At least she was, until Kidamaru got sick of listening to he shot a blob of webbing out of his mouth and hit her in the mouth, effectively shutting her up. Kushina took out a katana and was keeping the sound female from using her flute. Tayuya already had a short fuse and it was getting shorter and shorter by the second. Hashirama was just holding back while he fought Jirobo. Jirobo may have been strong, but he wasn't as strong as him. The first Hokage always blocked his attacks and always held back. When he unleashed a punch on the overweight man, Jirobo was getting annoyed and was wondering if he should turn on his curse mark. Taburma was biding his time as well. Using an unparalleled control over water, he managed to keep the Siamese twins at bay. Each time they threw an attack, the second Hokage pulled some water from the air and used it to deflect his attack. The two brothers were both getting angry with the man and their short fuses were really coming close to an end. Minato was basically just goofing around with Kidamaru. The Spider-Man sent out blast after blast of webbing from his mouth to try and hit the man, but before the tournament he set up a bunch of Hyrule seals all over the village so he could teleport around. It was proving to be effective at both avoiding the webs and for pissing off the man. Kidamaru even threw a few things of solidified webbing so that he could kill the supposed to be dead Kage. He kept missing and it only infuriated him further. Back in the arena, Sasuke had been joined by Haku and Zabuza to help take down the Sound and Sand Ninja in the arena. Zabuza kept cutting them down and Haku kept hitting them with throwing needles. She was approached by a bunch of ninja when she realized she was almost out. Before she could voice it to Zabuza, she was tackled and sent to the ground to the Sound Ninja. "Pretty girl," the Sound Ninja said. "Maybe after the invasion I'll be able to keep you as my pet." Haku glared at the man and brought her leg up into his crotch. The man howled in pain and swung her hand, raking her nails across his face. The man clutched his face in pain and fell back. Haku then formed some ice needles from the water in the air and drove them into his temple. The man was killed instantly. Sasuke currently had his Onyx Sharingan out and was lighting the ninja ablaze with the Amaterasu. He even put some of the others in the Tsukunomi and cut them down with his sword. Sasuke was then charged at by a large ninja with a very heavy club. He brought the thing down and Sasuke blocked it with his katana. It took most of the blow, but Sasuke was blown back by the force of the blow. The man rose his club again to try and squash the Uchiha. He knew it was against Orochimaru's orders to hurt boy, but Hit's kid took out a close friend of his and he was going to make him pay. Haku saw her boyfriend defenseless as the ninja rose his heavy weapon. She jumped in the way as the club was about to be brought down. Time seemed to slow for Sasuke. If he had known something, felt his shock and saw what he saw. "Do you want to save her?" a voice said in his head. "What?" the Uchiha asked mentally. "Do you want to save her? Do you want the power to destroy your enemies?" "If this power is corrupt, then I don't want it," Sasuke mentally seethed. "I want power to protect her and power to do that alone." "Ha ha ha," the voice laughed. "You have a strong-willed boy and a noble heart. Me and my kind shall serve you." Sasuke then felt a strange power run through him. Back with Haku, the large man was swinging down his club on the girl. Haku closed her eyes so she wouldn't see it coming. There was a loud crack and she felt no pain. Haku opened one eye and then both shot open. Sasuke stood in front of her with the club of the ninja clutched in his grip, his Onyx Sharingan blazing. Slowly the white tomos merged together to form a spider web-like pattern. Sasuke then radiated a blackish chakra. As it flowed down to his arm, it affected the sword he was holding. The blade turned silver and the image of a black bird appeared on the bottom of the blade. The handle turned black with a red crystal on the hilt, and on the bottom of the handle was the Uchiha symbol. "What?" he growled. "Do you think you're doing to my girlfriend?" He swung the now darkened blade and split the man in half. Sasuke yelled in anger and charged forward into the onslaught of oncoming enemies. All the while thought went through Haku's and Zabuza's minds. Zabuza had witnessed it after he tore off the head of another sand ninja. What the hell was that? Back with Naruto. Naruto avoided another air bullet shot at him from the sand Jinchuriki. The two had exchanged a jutsu here and there and Naruto was starting to get tired. He knew he had to unseal some of his power. That was when he felt some dark chakra coming from somewhere. He then remembered what he did to Sasuke's Sharingan. So that's what the Manjikyu version does, he thought. As he was thinking, he got hit by Gaara in the chest and was sent into a tree. Again. Okay, that is it. Naruto yelled as he put his hands together. Chakra seal release 1. Naruto felt a rush of power run through him. Naruto growled as he kicked, sending out a chakra blade. Gaara brought up his arms and covered himself. The chakra blades hit him hard and cut off the sand arm he had. Unfortunately, it grew back a few seconds later. Naruto made a few clones and they charged and attacked the sand monster. It was then that Naruto noticed something. Whenever Gaara attacked, he seemed to protect the spot right below the tail. Naruto grimaced. He swore that after he once used it on an enemy, more precisely his mother, that he would never do it again. Right now he didn't have a choice, and what his mom didn't know wouldn't hurt him. Naruto unsealed Shadow Claw and ran at the sand nine edge. Gaara swung his mutated arm and Naruto jumped over it and landed at him and called out his move, Uzumaki style. Screaming darkness. 1,000 years of pain. Gaara didn't have the time to comprehend what was going to happen next. Naruto shoved the sword back, fixing it in the spot below the tail. Temari, who was watching nearby, sweat dropped as she saw it. She was shocked when the black sword started to glow. Then Naruto moved the sword, swinging it up. The result was loud screaming and a dark blast shooting upward, carrying Gaara with it. The sand Jinchuriki screamed out in pain as he was sent flying upward. Gaara thought. He hit me. Where the armor is at its weakest. How did he know? Back on the ground, Naruto was focusing chakra into his hand. He jumped up the Rasengan, forming flying at his enemy. Naruto pulled back the move and yelled, "Taste this, you overgrown sandbox." Rasengan. The chakra sphere made contact with Gaara's buttocks, making the sand Jinchuriki scream out in pain. There was sudden explosion and Gaara was sent flying into another part of the forest. Naruto went back to earth and groaned slightly from the exertion he had just put himself through. Glad that's over, he thought. He really shouldn't have thought that. In the part of the forest where Gaara landed, he growled. He growled, will not let my existence be extinguished by him. Back with Naruto, the ground started to shake. Naruto spun around just in time to see a huge thing of sand shoot out of the ground. The sand merged together to form a massive raccoon-like creature. Naruto growled as he knew he was far from being done. He bit his thumb and went through hand signs, yelling, "Lion summoning, Mufasa!" There was a huge plume of smoke and a black lion with a gold mane appeared. "Naruto," the lion said, "to what do I owe the pleasure of you summoning me?" "I need your help to fight that guy, big man," Naruto said, pointing at the abomination that was once Gaara. The large lion glared at the demonic sand raccoon thing. A low growl escaped the giant cat's lips and it bared its teeth in a vicious snarl. "Naruto," the lion boss said, "you were right to summon me to fight this creature. He is much too powerful like this to fight unless you want to." "Mufasa," Naruto groaned. "You know what will happen if I unseal too much of my power at one time." "I know, boy, I'm just yanking your chain," the lion said, rolling its eyes. "Let's teach this freak a lesson." The large beast charged at the raccoon and sank its teeth into its arm. The monster pulled away and the lion spat out sand. The monster's head then opened slightly on the top and Gaara rose up. "Hey, big guy," Naruto yelled. "What's he doing?" "Naruto," the lion said, determination in its voice. "We have to make sure that boy stays awake. If my suspicions are right, if he falls asleep, we'll have to deal with the demon and we don't want to have to deal with that. We have to act now before dash. Ninja art. Forced sleep jutsu." "Dang it," the lion yelled. The beast's eyes, which had earlier been foggy, now became clearer, and you could tell that the Shikaku was back. "Yes, I'm out," the monster yelled. "And I'll celebrate by killing you. Wind style, air bullet." The monster shot out a large blast of wind from its mouth. The lion jumped away from it and landed a few feet away. "You call that a technique?" the lion boss asked. "This is a wind technique. Wind style, fierce roar." The lion let out a massive roar that made the ground shake. Tamari, who was a little bit away, covered her ears as the sound of the roar hit her ears like an atom bomb. The blast of wind that shot from the lion's mouth knocked the Shikaku off its feet. The beast fell to the ground, and Naruto and Mufasa had a moment to think. "How do we beat this guy?" Naruto asked. "If he's made of sand, he'll just keep rebuilding himself." "We need to wake up that kid," the lion explained. "If we can wake him up, the Shikaku should go back into the seal." "How are we going to do that?" Naruto asked. "We need to get in close." As the lion said this, the monster had finished reforming itself. "I need to get a good grip on him. Then you can punch the little punk until he's up." "Got it." Naruto nodded. "Good. Now you're going to want to cover your ears. Wind style, ultimate roar." Mufasa took a very deep breath, and Naruto covered his ears like he was told. The lion let out another roar, this one shaking the ground even more. Tamari grabbed her ears, as she didn't want to end up being deaf. The Shikaku was blown back a bit more as the roar hit it. The beast was knocked back to the ground. Naruto and Mufasa saw their chance, and the two charged at it. As the Shikaku rose up, Mufasa sank his claws and teeth into the Shikaku's hide. Naruto ran and jumped off the lion's head and ran across the monsters to Gaara. "Hey!" Naruto yelled. "Wake up!" Naruto rushed forward and slammed his fist into Gaara's head. Gaara was sent reeling with the bow. Naruto knew that he wasn't awake because the demon was still out. Naruto unleashed a few more punches until some sand came up and wrapped around his arms and legs, keeping him from attacking. Naruto growled and brought his hands together and said, "Chakra seal release 2. Naruto felt another rush of energy come through him as more of his chakra was released. He growled and, using his newly released chakra, tore himself from the sand and ran toward the red head. "Rise and shine," Naruto yelled as he brought a powerful punch to the side of Gaara's face. The force of the blow knocked Gaara awake. "Oh, come on," Shikaku whined. "I just got here. It's not fair." His eyes turned glassy, and the sand he was made of crumbled, and Naruto and Gaara fell to the ground below. Naruto landed on his feet while Gaara crashed down on his back. Naruto was really tired right now. Naruto slowly stood up and approached the downed Gaara. Gaara began to panic. "No!" he yelled. "Stay away from me. I won't let you take away my existence. It's all I have." "I don't want to take your existence," Naruto said. "And it's not all you have." Gaara stopped and listened to Naruto. As he did, Tamari showed up. "Gaara," Naruto said, "I once carried the same burden you do. I was hated, hurt, and I lived alone. Eventually I found a family, but you have had one all your life. Don't push them away, Gaara. Someday you'll need them more than you think." At that moment, Kankuro showed up. He was a little tired after his chakra drain. He had managed to regain some strength after eating a soldier pill. He had gotten out of the village and saw the fight with Gaara and Naruto. Said Blonde turned to look at the two. "Get out of here," Naruto said. "And if you come back with ill intent, I will hurt you." The two siblings nodded and grabbed Gaara. They then shot off into the forest. Naruto grinned, looking proud with himself. Then he realized something. "Oh no, the old man is still fighting the snake." He turned to Mufasa, who had yet to go back to the summon world. "Do you have enough strength to get us back?" The lion nodded. Naruto jumped up on the beast's head and swallowed a soldier pill to bring back his strength. The lion shot off at an incredible speed. Naruto hoping he would make it in time. Meanwhile, with the fleeing sand siblings, Gaara spoke up. "Tamari, Kankuro," he said. "I'm sorry." The two were taken aback. Kankuro grinned and Tamari had a few tears of joy coming into her eyes. "It's okay, little bro," Tamer said, with Kankuro agreeing. "Let's just get you home." Gaara nodded and let a very rare, real smile cross his lips. Sarutobi blocked another slash from the Kasangi with his adamant staff. He was knocked back a little bit but managed to hold. He was currently at his 5th standoff like this with his former student, and it was getting rather tiresome doing this. The other competitors were starting to get really bored with this as well. I told you, old man, the snake Sannin. I told you that I would kill you, and I finally will kill you. Then would you mind telling me why I'm still breathing? The old fire shadow asked with a smirk on his face. The snake growled in anger at the old man. He started to push harder against the old man's staff. He was getting tired of this little game. Kadamaru was getting sick of playing for once. He was getting tired of this blonde messing with him every step of the way. He was tired of this because he had much better things to do than mess with this guy. Plus he knew that the longer he drew this fight out, the less chance he had of beating this guy. He felt a twinge of excitement run through him. It had been a long time since he last had to come this far in a fight. Jirobo was running out of steam against Hashirama. The overweight man jumped back to avoid a large piece of wood that would have crushed him like a bug if he hadn't moved out of the way. He was really starting to get annoyed with this guy. He knew that he had to do that, though it excited him a bit. It had been a while since he had to use that. Sukan and Yukon were not having an easy time. Even with both brothers awake, they were having a little trouble fighting off the second of the thought-dead fire shadows. They knew that it was finally time to stop holding back. It was finally time to show them what they could really do. Tayuya was still unable to talk due to the webbing that covered her mouth. She was still on edge due to her not being able to counter Kushina's strikes with her flute. She was having a lot of trouble now since she had never been that good at close combat. At the moment she was cursing herself for not studying close combat when she had the chance. She knew what it was she had to do. "Okay guys," Jirobo said. "Let's show these dead punks what we're made of." The others all nodded. Their opponents stopped for a brief second to see what it was that they were talking about. Slowly black marks spread all over their bodies. Minato's eyes widened as he saw the marks spread. "Watch out guys," he yelled. "They got curse marks." "Yeah honey," Kushina yelled back. "We noticed." Jirobo smirked at Hashirama when the marks started to glow and spread over his body. When the glow faded, it revealed a being that looked more like an ogre than a human. His skin had gained an orange-like color and his body had all kinds of swollen parts on it. The newly formed ogre grinned at the first Hokage. "Let's see what you got, old man," Jirobo said, cracking his knuckles loudly. "Indeed we shall," Hashirama said in a calm voice. Tayuya felt he webbing over her mouth break as the power flooded her body. Her skin became darker and 3 large horns grew out of her head. Her eyes turned yellow and the whites of her eyes had turned completely black. "Okay," the newly transformed woman said. "Let's see what you got, you dash." Before she could even finish her sentence, she was slapped in the mouth with a thing of duct tape. "Watch you language, young lady," Kushina sighed with a smirk. "I'm in no mood to hear such language. From what I've heard, I'm gonna have to wash your mouth out with soap." Tayuya growled at the woman and started cursing behind the duct tape. Kushina was really glad that the younger readers couldn't hear what this woman was saying. Sukan and Yukon both felt their power grow. The toe moved to where their heads were side by side. The head both took demonic shapes, each one turning red with large teeth. Another change was the large horn that grew out of one side of their heads. If they were separate, it would look like one brother was standing next to a mirror. "Now," Sukan started. "It's time to die," Yukon finished. Tobarama just narrowed his eyes at the joined twins. He got into a fighting stance and got ready for the two to start things. Kadamaru laughed maniacally as his skin grew darker. 2 small horns grew out of his forehead and his teeth grew to points. Another new feature was a 3rd eye that grew in the center of his forehead. He continued laughing like a maniac and glared at Minato. "All right," he said menacingly. "Let's see if the so-called yellow flash is as fast as they say." "You," Minato said, getting in a stance, "are so going down." Round 1. Hashirama versus Jirobo. The newly transformed ogre charged at the first Hokage, swing his fist like crazy. Hashirama jumped out of the way and noticed how each punch formed craters in the tiles. He glared at the monster as it looked at him angrily. "Hold still so I can crush you," Jirobo yelled as he charged at the man. Hashirama jumped up and over Jirobo to avoid a strong punch to the face. The first Hokage then spun on his heel and nailed the ogre in the face. Jirobo was sent flying back and hit a small building. The man-thing got up groggily as he clutched his stomach where he had been hit. He glared up at Hashirama, who looked like he was focusing. Then he remembered what the man was famous for. Jirobo scampered up and moved just in time for the wood that was underneath the tile to spike and nearly turn him into a giant oversized pincushion. He jumped to the side to avoid a few more wooden spikes that would have killed him. Hashirama watched this and had to admit that he was very fast for a rather large man. Jirobo jumped up suddenly and charged at the wood user. The two met and the two started a grappling contest. Jirobo pushed as hard as he could, but he couldn't manage to push the man back. How? Jirobo groaned as he was getting tired of pushing back on the man. How could you be this strong after being dead for so long? Simple, Hashirama said. I trained while IW as in heaven. You have much free time there. Hashirama then brought his knee up in Jirobo's gut and knocked him back. He smirked at the man. In fact, Hashirama said, I managed to do a few things with my wood style. He then went through hand signs and yelled, With style, forest crusher. The ground beneath them shook and large roots burst from the ground. Jirobo, who was still in pain, looked up in shock. One of the roots came down and smashed the man in the chest, causing him to go flying into another building. Some more roots came out and picked the crushed man up. The pain from the attack was so intense that it caused Jirobo to change back to his human self. Here's something else I learned, Hashirama said as he went through hand signs again. When he finished, a large pair of white angel wings sprouted from his back. Jirobo stared as a large ball of light formed into the first Hokage's hands. The man then called out his attack. Light style. Piercing light. The first Hokage then drew back his arm, taking the energy ball with it. Then he shot a large beam of light. Jirobo screamed as the blast hit him head-on. After a few seconds of blasting, there was nothing left of the Goliath. Don't underestimate a Kage, Hashirama said, crossing his arms. Round 2. Tobirama versus Sukon and Yukon. The new-formed Siamese monsters jumped to avoid a killer punch to the chest that nearly ripped open their chest. Man, it's hard to do this when there are two people in one body. Anyway, they dodged another punch and jumped behind the second Hokage. Multi-punch! The two yelled at the same time. Tobirama jumped away just in time to avoid multiple punches to the back of his head. He did a few back flips to get away from the terrible twins. Tobirama kept a serious face as the two growled in frustration. Stay still, Yukon growled. So we can kill you, Sukon finished. I don't think so, Robber sighed as he pulled water from the air and sent a few water kunai at the two. The two jumped up to avoid the kunai. They forgot that they were made of water and not metal, though. The water kunai, through Tobirama's will, suddenly changed direction. Each one then pierced the twin demon's back and the two heads howled in absolute pain. While the two were distracted, Tobirama went through hand signs and called out, Water style, binding whirlpool. A sudden whirlpool appeared and wrapped around the two-headed monster. The two struggled, but they couldn't get out of the water's amazingly tight grip. Tobirama smirked and went through hand signs again. The brothers saw this and doubled their efforts to escape. However, Tobirama finished his jutsu and called out, Water style, severing current. Another burst of water came from the air and came down and ran down between the two brothers' heads. They screamed in pain as they were suddenly ripped in half. Tobirama grinned at his victory. It was then that the two heads began to laugh. Then out of the two halves the rest of a body came out. The only difference was that they were both black and metal-like. Like it? Sukon asked as he got up. We can't be killed by separating us, Yukon explained. You just cut your chances of beating us in half. Then maybe he needs some help, Hashirama said as he came out of nowhere and slammed a fist into Sukon's face. Brother, Yukon yelled. He would have run to help his brother, but a blast of water from Tobirama stopped him and knocked him off the roof of the building they were currently on. Hashirama was going nuts on his new punching bag. Each punch made the man reel. Finally, the first Hokage got tired of beating on the man. He then sent a strong punch to Sukon's face and then sent him flying with a mighty kick to the side of the head. After that, he went through hand signs. This, Hashirama said as wings sprouted on his back and wood underneath his feet started to shine a little, is something that I've always wanted to try. Light/wood style. Wrath of Eden. The wood beneath him burst out and formed a massive tree. Sukon got up from his sudden and unexpected flight and saw the massive glowing tree. His jaw dropped as he saw the sheer size of the thing. His shock turned to fear as a few of the branches came down and wrapped themselves around the man and picked him up. Suddenly the tree glowed brighter and then the bark began to crack. Hashirama then took the time to get the heck away from the thing. At that moment, in a column of bright light, the tree exploded in a shine of brilliance. You couldn't hear Sukan's screams over the sound of the explosion. "Whoa," said a civilian who was peeking out of a window from the safe place he was hiding. "It looks like the first and second Kages have gotten stronger in death." "It seems that way," said his wife who was hiding with him. All the ANBU around them stared at the display of beautiful and destructive power. Heck, even Orochimaru and Sarutobi stopped to watch. All the others stopped to watch, except for Tobirama, Kushina, and Minato. "That was both cool and terrifying at the same time," the snake Sannin said with a rare look of awe on his face. "You get used to it after a while, I guess," Sarutobi said. It was then that he remembered what was happening. He then brought down his staff on Orochimaru's head and then sent him flying like a baseball bat into a wall. Meanwhile, Naruto rode on Mufasa's back and saw the large pillar of light. He knew what was happening. "Come on, Mufasa," Naruto said. "We got to get there yesterday." "I'm running as fast as I can, boy," Mufasa yelled as they kept on running. Back with the other fighters, Yukon was knocked out of his daze by Tobirama knocking him senseless with a powerful shot to the head. The last of the twins rose up and growled at the man who punched him in the face. "Since that punk killed my brother," he growled as he spat out some blood, "I'll kill his brother." Yukon charged. In his anger, it was clear that he was not thinking this through. Since his approach was now very sloppy, he was easily countered with a simple punch to the face from the second Hokage. The white-haired man then walked toward the now lone brother. Yukon growled again and tried to grab him. Tobirama jumped out of the way and punched him again. Yukon didn't move when he hit the ground. Tobirama was still on guard as he approached the downed warrior. He was right to be as the man suddenly leapt up and grabbed him. "Got you, no," Yukon yelled in a crazed voice. He then started to merge his body with the former Kages. "What are you doing?" the man grunted as he felt his body burn. "I'm merging myself with you," the crazed man explained. "My body cells are slowly mixing with yours and making you a part of my body. Soon there won't be anything left." "I don't think so," said a voice. Hashirama formed multiple spikes of wood and sent them into Yukon's back. The man screamed in pain. Tobirama took advantage of the temporary distraction and grabbed the man. He then proceeded to rip him off his back and slam him into the ground. Then he kicked him, knocking him away. A pool of blood appeared where Yukon's hand had been ripped out. Tobirama grunted in pain, but decided to end this now. He went through hand signs as wings appeared on his back. Yukon saw this and knew what would happen. He then charged forward and to try and stop him. Hashirama responded by blocking the crazed man with his own body. Yukon's hand mixed with Hashirama's body and the first Hokage grunted in pain. Hashirama formed a wooden spear in his hand and shoved it into the man's shoulder. Yukon screamed in pain again. He was then shoved off and Hashirama brought out some roots and wrapped them around Yukon. At that moment, Tobirama finished his hand signs. Shining water started to form rings around him as he called out, "Light/water style. Flood of holy water." The shining water shined a bit brighter and formed a stream and slammed into Yukon. Yukon was still in his second stage form, so the holy water burned him as bad as it did his brother. Instead of a large explosion like Hashirama's jutsu, the water just dissolved the man's body until there was nothing left except for some bones. And then the bones crumbled to dust and were blown in the wind. "Best way to kill a pest?" Tobirama panted, the pain in his back burning. "Make sure none of its body survives." He then fell to his knee and Hashirama ran to his side. He took out some soldier pills and a plasma pill. His brother took them and nodded a thanks to the man. The Hashirama used the time they had to heal the wound in his brother's back. He would then focus on his own. Round 3, Kidamaru versus Minato. Minato dodged to the side to avoid a spear of solidified webbing to the head. Kidamaru growled at the man. Each of his hands had a thing of solidified webbing in the form of clubs. The Spider-Man growled in anger as he missed again. Though he usually enjoyed messing with his enemies, this was getting very bothersome. He charged forward, swinging his each one in a crazy pattern. Though close combat wasn't normally his thing, he just wanted to kill this guy and move on with it because this was getting really annoyed. "Will you hold still so I can kill you?" Kidamaru yelled as he missed again. "Sorry," Minato said, "but I have this thing about being alive and having my head still on my shoulders. Call me old-fashioned." Kidamaru growled in annoyance again and jumped back. He was getting really tired of this and decided to bring out something new. He cut his thumb and went through few hand signs. Try this on for size punk. Summoning jutsu. There was a huge plume of smoke, and when it cleared it showed a massive spider on a web that was formed between two incredibly tall buildings that Minato never noticed before. Minato thought as he saw them, "Hey honey, how long have these buildings been here?" "For a while, dear," Kushina yelled back at him as she fought Tayuya. Minato didn't get to finish his conversation with his wife as a large sack appeared on the spider's abdomen. Then it broke in half and a whole lot of spiders fell from the webbing, each one landing with surprising grace. Each one chattered a bit and then turned to look at Minato. The man could have sworn that he heard a few of them growl. "You want a piece of me, little buggies?" Minato asked as he took out two three-pronged kunai. "Come on then." The spiders apparently heard him as they all charged. Minato started swinging both of the kunai in his grip with surprising efficiency and brutality. Like the others, he hadn't been idle while he was in heaven. One by one the spiders fell. Unfortunately, there seemed to be an army of them and he just couldn't take all of them down. As he noticed that they just wouldn't stop coming, he decided to pull one of his many tricks out of his sleeve. "Well," he said as he dropped into a stance with his legs spread evenly and crouched, "looks like I get to use this puppy a bit earlier than I expected." Minato focused intently. His chakra started to radiate and slowly a swirl of chakra formed at his feet. He growled a little as he felt the chakra start to swirl at the bottom of his feet. Kidamaru stopped to watch, all three of his eyes watching intently. The spiders around Minato stopped to watch as well. Though they may not have been the smartest of creatures, they had to admire such a show of skill. "Time to solve this pest control problem," Minato yelled as the chakra at his feet began to swirl more violently. He threw back his head and yelled out, "Rasen Twister!" As the echo of his shout echoed, the chakra at his feet shot up, forming a massive twister. The force of the twister sucked up all the spiders that were around him. Since the vortex was made of completely pure chakra, it burned them alive. If that wasn't enough, the twister hit the massive spider dead in the center. The large but screeched in pain, its body was torn apart. Kidamaru formed some more spikes of webbing and slammed them into the roof he was currently standing on and held on for dear life. After a few seconds and a few pieces of debris later, the twister died down and Minato fell to one knee panting hard. He didn't like doing that move since it took up a lot of energy to do so. He breathed hard for a few seconds. He reached into his pocket and pulled out some soldier pills. Kidamaru snapped out of his daze from the attack and came down swinging. Before he could make contact, however, Minato vanished in a sudden flash of yellow. Kidamaru yelled out in frustration as he just couldn't get that guy to stay still long enough to actually kill him. A few feet away, Minato took a few soldier pills to refuel himself a bit. Then he walked over to the edge of the building and looked down at the seething Kidamaru. "Hey bug boy," Minato yelled. Kidamaru snarled and leapt up at the man. The bug man spat out some more webbing and formed a spear with a spiral edge. He jumped in, stabbing and swinging like crazy. "You know," Minato said, dodging, "I'm starting to wonder why Snake Boy picked you to be his bodyguard. I mean, you can't fight, you don't have any coordination. Long story short, you just plain suck." "Shut up and die," Kidamaru yelled in complete and utter rage. On the next swing, Minato caught the spear and snapped it in half. Then he sent a strong punch to the spider guy's face. The bug man was sent flying back. He didn't get up right away and clutched his face in pain. Minato grinned as he went through hand signs and wings grew on his back. He finished his hand signs and yelled out his attack. "Light style, burning sun." A huge ball of light formed in the blonde's hands and he shot forward a massive blast of energy. Kidamaru looked up as Minato shouted to see the massive energy ball heading for him. He flushed out some of his solidifying webbing to form a protective barrier around him. Unfortunately, the power from the light was too much. The webbing burned away and Kidamaru screamed in pain as the light destroyed every part of him. Minato fell to his knees, breathing hard. He took out another soldier pill and ate it. He then got up slowly and ran in the direction of his wife's fight. Round 4. Kushina vs. Tayuya. Tayuya hid behind a building as Kushina had temporarily lost the sight of her opponent. Tayuya played dirty and swung some dirt in Kushina's face to get away from her. Kushina was pretty frustrated that she had fallen for such a dirty trick. In her hiding spot, Tayuya slowly peeled off the duct tape that was wrapped around her mouth. After a second, she had it off and growled as she brought to her lips. At that moment Kushina sensed her. She ran toward the spot and Tayuya started to play. The world around Kushin started to morph as everything melted away. The next thing she knew, she was wrapped up in ninja wire. "In your face, little girl," Tayuya said as she walked up. "Now it's payback time." Kushin grinned as she heard the voice and brought her heel up to nail Tayuya in the chest. She was happy when she felt her foot actually hit something. She thought it was genjutsu, but she didn't really have a choice in where she should attack or not. After Tayuya was knocked back, Kushina formed a ram seal and yelled, "Kai!" Everything turned back to normal and she glared angrily at the woman. "My turn to play tricks," Kushina said as she went through hand signs. "Lightning style, electric surge." Electricity danced in between Kushina's fingertips. She shoved her hands forward, sending a volt of lighting at the flute-using woman. Tayuya got up from the ground just in time to see the move heading at her. She jumped up and managed to dodge it. Unfortunately, she was wide open and Kushina jumped up and nailed her in the face with a nasty right cross. Tayuya was sent flying and hit the opposite wall with a crack. Tayuya fell to the ground, but managed to catch herself. She groaned as she rose up. Kushina looked down at her with a triumphantly at her. "Had enough, tiny?" Kushina asked in a mocking tone. "I'll show you who's tiny, you." "You?" Tayuya stopped and groaned. "Damn it, I can't even think of a good curse." Tayuya cut her hand and slammed it onto the ground, bring up a rather large cloud of smoke. When it cleared, it showed 3 large creatures. One carried a club, another had claws tied to its hands, and another didn't really have anything, but it looked strong. "Let's see you fight this, you red-headed slut," Tayuya yelled as she started to play her flute. As she did, the 3 monsters charged. Kushina brought out her golden swords and got ready. She charged and met up with the club monster first. The beast swung its weapon and nearly crushed the girl. Kushina was faster though and jumped up as the beast had its weapon stuck in the ground. Kushina came back down to earth and with incredible precision cut the club in half. She followed it up with a punch to the stomach, making the creature fall to its knees. The crab monster came at her next. Kushina bobbed and weaved to avoid the large claws that were tied to the monster's hands. Kushina ducked under one blow and ran forward. Once underneath the monster, she swung her swords in an X pattern, causing the arms to come off. The beast staggered back and Kushina followed that up with a rather strong kick to its head, knocking it back. The last one came up swinging all of its fists in a frenzied manner. Kushina jumped from side to side to avoid the massive fists. Then Tayuya started to play faster, making the monster move faster as well. Kushina wasn't prepared for this and was knocked back into the wall by the creature's punch. The large monster now stood over the woman and raised both of its massive fists. The large thing then brought his fist down on the woman. Tayuya grinned to herself as she saw her enemy fall. The beast rose its large fist to reveal a crushed log. Tayuya stopped playing and panicked as she saw the woman was not there. "Hey!" a voice yelled. Tayuya looked to find the voice and saw Kushina going through hand signs. Kushin then called out, "Storm style, Dragon of the Storm." Lightning formed in Kushina's hands. The blast of lighting shot out and went straight for the 2. Tayuya acted quick. Though her monsters were without their weapons, they were not without purpose. The 3 behemoths jumped it way of the techniques. Their stitched mouths opened and ghost-like apparitions with multiple moths came out. The lightning stream formed a dragon in the time it took for this to happen. The apparitions opened their mouths as the dragon hit the 3 behemoths, and bit by bit the lightning that sucked in and absorbed. "Ha!" Tayuya yelled. "It's over now." "You'd think so, wouldn't you?" Kushina asked, looking at the 3 monsters with a smirk. At that moment, the 3 monsters began to twitch and then, boom! The 3 exploded in a sudden burst of intense lightning. Kushina jumped up to avoid the smoke cloud that would have hit her. Tayuya was too shocked to do anything. She then noticed Kushina going through hand signs and wings coming out of her back. The musical illusionist gasped and would have run if a pair of arms hadn't suddenly wrapped around her and stopped her from running. "Where do you think you're going?" Minato asked. "The fun's just beginning." Kushina finished her hand signs and called out, "Light/storm style, Holy Storm." The lightning that appeared in Kushina's hands turned gold and sent out a huge wave of gold lightning at Tayuya. Minato let go and Hira shined out of their right before it hit. Tayuya's eyes widened when she saw the move coming at her. She screamed in unbridled agony as the holy and electric energies ripped through her. Soon there was a loud explosion, and all that was left was a very tiny pile of ashes. One less pain to deal with, Kushina sighed as she fell to her knee in exhaustion. Minato hiroshined over to his wife and gave her a soldier pill. She took it thankfully and kissed her husband. "Be lovey-dovey later, you two," a familiar voice yelled. The two turned to see Naruto on top of a giant lion. "We got to save the old man," the boy yelled as he jumped off Mufasa as the Lion King vanished in a puff of smoke. The two nodded and ran for the final battleground. Hashirama and Tobirama joined them as they ran to the fight. Finally they arrived at the fight, and the old wasn't faring very well. The was currently pushed back against the ground with Kusangi at his throat. "Time to die, old man," the snake Sannin said evilly. He rose the sword and was about to bring it down when Minato appeared in front of him with a Rasengan in his hand. "I don't think so, you snake freak," Minato yelled as she slammed it into the snake Sannin's chest and sent him flying with a resounding crash as he hit the arena floor. It was strange that they had all managed to stay in the same general area while they were fighting. Minato helped the old man up. Orochimaru groaned as he rose up. He snarled angrily and pointed the Kusangi at his enemies. "I don't care if I have to fight my way through these fools," he declared. "I will kill you." "I don't think so," Naruto's voice rang out. Orochimaru spun around to see the boy with Angel's hand drawn and glowing. Naruto swung the sword and yelled, "Exorcism slash!" The holy blade cut through Orochimaru and he screamed in pain. As the sword excited, there was a black slime on the blade that was glowing purple. Naruto swung it off and it hit the ground a few feet away. Naruto set the sword on his shoulder and asked, "Are you okay?" "Aye," Orochimaru groaned. "I'll be fine." Orochimaru groaned as he got up. He turned and looked at the others. To the others' complete shock, high eyes were green and purple marks on his face were gone. "Old man," Naruto said, "this is the real Orochimaru, the one that you knew before the whole missing-in thing." "Is it possible?" Sarutobi said as he looked at the man. "It is," Orochimaru said. "My actions and my mind have not been my own for the past few years. All of them were of that thing Naruto took out of me." "What was it exactly?" Tobirama asked. The ground then began to shake and the roof cracked. Then out of the ground burst a large monster. It resembled a snake. It had black scales and large yellow eyes. The thing that set the things apart was a long trail of spikes going down its back. Another difference was the large amount of teeth in its mouth and a third eye on top of its head. "That," Naruto said as he got into combat stance. "You," the monster growled. "You will pay." "What the hell is that?" Sarutobi yelled as he saw the black snake-like monster. "It's a basilisk," Naruto said. "It along with a few other demons escaped from the underworld a few years ago. All the others are dead. There is one other than this ugly freak." "Freak?" the basilisk growled in anger. "You will pay for insulting me, you little piece of slime." The monstrous serpent shot its head out toward the blonde. Naruto jumped out of the way in time and brought Angel's hand down on the snake scales. It tore through the demon's flesh, but it did little more than irritate the monster. "Jach," the beast roared. "I've only fought you for a few seconds and I'm already sick of you, boy." The snake swung its tail and nailed Naruto in the chest, sending him flying into the side of a building. Minato jumped up and formed another Rasengan in his hand. He shoved it forward, making contact with the serpent's skull. The beast's head was sent back a little bit, but it recoiled and slammed its head into Minato, sending him flying only to be caught by a large hand of wood made by Hashirama. "More meddling humans," the Serpent King growled. "No matter. You will all soon perish by my might." "We got to kill this thing fast," Tobirama said, appearing next to his brother. "If we don't, he'll cause great damage to the village." "We got to fight giants with giants," Naruto said, coming out of nowhere. They both looked at the crater in the building Naruto had made. He looked a little scuffed up and his trench coat was torn, but with it gone he could move more quickly now. "What do you mean, Naruto?" Kushina asked. "Find Tsunade and Jiraiya," Naruto answered. "Try and lure this oversized toy outside the village and get them to summon the bosses. Dad and Mom, and summon their bosses too." "Nice plan," Sarutobi said. "Can't wait to see how it plays out," said the serpents. "I have got to start paying attention to my surroundings in these fights," Naruto murmured. The basilisk blasted a flood of acid and poison from its mouth. The group of Kages and ninja jumped out of the way. Good thing too, because the building they were on was turned to a puddle of boiling slim. A bunch of NBU appeared and went through hand signs, then they called out, "Fire style, burning ash pile." All the respective ANBU blew as from their mouths. The burning ash hit the basilisk, making it hiss in pain. If there was one thing this guy couldn't stand, it was fire. The ANBU then clicked their teeth, causing the ash to ignite, and then it all exploded. The serpent threw back its head and yelled out in pain. It turned its gaze to the ANBU. The thing then ducked its head. The third eye on its head flashed purple. The ANBU were then turned to statues of stone. The snake rose its tail and then brought it down on the statues, effectively ending the team's life. "Hey Snakey," Naruto yelled up at the monster. "You think you're all tough just because you got a big third eye? You're just a big pushover, you oversized legless iguana." "What did you say?" The serpent roared, sending its tail toward Naruto, who managed to dodge to the side. "I'll eat you alive, you little brat," the beast roared in absolute rage. "I don't see that happening," Naruto taunted. He then focused chakra into his legs and then made a break for it. The serpent growled in rage. Then it dove underground. The ground cracked as it followed closely behind Naruto. Minata, Kushina, Sarutobi, Hashirama, Tobirama, and Orochimaru all following them. They were running through the village when Minato spotted Jiraiya and Tsunade. "Hey!" he yelled out, managing to be heard over the carnage. "We need your help with something here. Come on." The two Sannin finished off the last of their opponents and ran off with them. The two then noticed Orochimaru was with them. "Long story," Kushina said to them. "Explain later." The two just shrugged and followed them. Meanwhile, Naruto was having a little bit of a hard time keeping ahead of the basilisk. The snake was much faster while it was underground than it was on land. He had to avoid a few blasts of acid shot at him from underground, but after a few minutes of running, he managed to get the basilisk to a secluded part of the forest that surrounded the village. Naruto noticed that the sound of rumbling wasn't following him anymore. He looked behind him and saw that the basilisk wasn't following him anymore. Since that was the case, he decided to stop running for a few seconds and take a breather. As soon as he stopped, the ground started shaking. The blonde gulped and leapt away as the ground gave way and the basilisk shot out of the ground. Naruto ran backwards a bit after that. The blonde then had to avoid the monster's jaws as they slammed into the ground next to him. "Is that all you got, boy?" the basilisk taunted. Naruto went through hand signs and yelled out, "Fire style, Phoenix flower jutsu." The blonde then released barrage of fireballs at the large serpent. The monster screamed as the fireballs exploded on its scales. The monster growled. It fired another blast of acid that Naruto managed to avoid. However, some of the acid splashed up struck his arm. Naruto hissed in pain as the monster's acid burned his arm. He ripped off the bandages on his forearm that got burned and threw them to the ground. The blonde then reached for his arm and unsealed Shadow Claw. The blonde then formed a shadow clone, putting a bit more chakra into it, allowing it to be able to take more damage without being destroyed. The clone took Shadow Claw from the real Naruto. The two clones then charged at the basilisk. "I don't care how many of you there are," the basilisk roared. "I'll kill you all." The basilisk brought up its tail and brought it down, making the ground crack beneath the force of the blow. Naruto jumped from the cracks and climbed up the newly formed formations up to the snake's tail, where he made his way to its head. He drew back Angel's hand and yelled, "Striking heavens!" The blonde brought down his sword that met the basilisk's scales. The snake hissed in pain as the holy metal struck his body, burning its tainted flesh. The other Naruto jumped up and swung Shadow Claw, yelling, "Screaming darkness!" A large blast of black energy shot off the sword and blasted the monster's head. Said monster roared in pain as the black energy tore through his flesh. The snake let out a monstrous hiss. It then launched itself at the young blonde. Tobirama water style, hardened water drill. Kushina water style, water bullet. Tsunade earth style, world of graves. Jiraiya fire style, fireball jutsu. Orochimaru, fire style, phoenix flower jutsu. Minato, wind style, great tornado. Hashirama, wood style, wood spike. Sarutobi, fire style, fire blast jutsu. A drill of water, a water ball, a large piece of earth, a large fireball, a lot of smaller fireballs, a large blast of flame, a spike of wood, and an aim twister struck the basilisk in the side. It roared in pain as its flesh was torn. The wounds, like the ones given to it before, started to heal. Where its body was burned and struck before, there were only large scars. Minato, Kushina, Tobirama, Hashirama, Jiraiya, Sarutobi, Orochimaru, and Tsunade all came on the scene. "How many of you little pests are going to come and fight?" the basilisk hissed in annoyance. "All right, you three," Naruto yelled from his spot. "Let it rip." Jiraiya and Tsunade cut their thumbs and went through hand signs. Orochimaru cut his thumb and spread it on a tattoo on his arm. Then all three Sannin brought their hands up and called out, "Summoning Jutsu!" There were 3 huge plumes of smoke that surrounded the 3 Sannin. As the smoke cleared, it showed the 3 sages each on large animals. Jiraiya stood on top of a large toad. The toad was red and was currently smoking a pipe. It wore a blue robe and had a sword sheathed on its belt. "Hey there, Bunta," Jiraiya said. "Ready to do some damage?" "Yeah," Bunta said. "But don't get in my way, Jiraiya. By the way, why are we fighting this thing and not him?" He was gesturing to Orochimaru. Said man was on top of a massive purple cobra that had black stripes on its back and green eyes. "As it turns out, he was possessed by this ugly cuss," Jiraiya said, pointing to the basilisk. "All right," the toad boss said. "No matter how much I don't like it, I'll fight with them." "Are you ready to fight?" Tsunade asked the giant white and blue slug that she stood on. "Yes, mistress," Katsuyu the slug boss said. "Orochimaru," Manda the snake boss growled out. "What do you think you're doing summoning me here? And what the hell is that doing here?" "He is our opponent," Orochimaru answered. "Plus he possessed me for a great deal of time, and I really want to get back at this overgrown grass snake, so would you mind?" "Not this time," Manda growled. "This guy tried to take the position of boss from me once, and I plan on taking him down even if I have to drag him to hell myself." Naruto got up and placed his hands together. Chakra seal release ×3. There was a burst chakra. Everyone turned to see Naruto raging with chakra. The blonde bit his finger and ran the bloody appendage over the summoning tattoo on his arm. Summoning Jutsu. Wolf, Lunar. In a huge plume of smoke, the large silver-furred and golden-eyed wolf appeared and howled at the sky. "You guys ready?" Naruto asked the Sannin. "It's time to play." "I don't care how many of you there are," the basilisk roared. "I will kill all of you." "Just try it," Bunta said as he drew his sword. "I always wanted a snakeskin wallet." Katsuyu charged with surprising speed for a slug and yelled, "Acid slime!" The monstrous serpent dodged to avoid being struck with the acidic liquid. He was then met by Bunta, who tired to stab his blade into the side of the monster's head. The snake dodged to the side. It was intercepted by Manda, who then sank his fangs into the basilisk's side. "Get off of me!" the basilisk yelled. Orochimaru took advantage of the basilisk being stuck. He ran up to the monster's head and then brought out the Kasangi into the snake's left eye. The snake reared back in pain. This was noticed by the others, who decided to take advantage of the moment. "Give me some oil, Bunta," Jiraiya yelled. The toad's stomach expanded, and then it fired a huge blast of black oil from its mouth. Jiraiya was going through hand signs and yelled, "Fire style, toad flame bombs." A huge blast of oil shot out of the toad's mouth, followed by a fireball from Jiraiya. The result was a jumbo-sized fire blast. There was silence after that. Everyone stood as they stared at the huge bonfire that had formed from the attack. "Is it dead?" Jiraiya asked out loud. The body in the flames then started to burn. At that moment, Jiraiya realized something. "It shed its skin," he yelled. The ground began to shake violently. All the summons jumped away at that time. Unfortunately for Katsuyu, the basilisk burst from the ground and wrapped round the large slug. The slug queen groaned in pain as her body was squeezed by the massive serpent-like monster. As the pressure started to grow more intense, she burst. Not in a shower of blood and slime, but into a whole barrage of smaller slugs. Some of the slugs slithered away from the monster. Others, however, then grouped together on it and began to secrete slime. The result was the basilisk being stuck in place by the slime. "Take him while he's down," Jiraiya yelled. With that shout, everyone made a quick break for the large monster. Minato and Jiraiya both formed Razengans and slammed them into the side of the snake's head. The head was broken out of the slime, allowing him to yell, "Damn you! You filthy hairless apes!" Kushina came up with her golden sword flashing. She drew them both back and yelled, "Heaven's cross!" Both golden blades were swung in cross shape. A huge blast of gold energy was shot off the blades and exploded on contact with the side of the large serpent. "Our turn!" Naruto yelled. "Come on, Lunar! Lightning style! Lightning blast!" "All right," Lunar growled. "Wind style! Howling twister!" Both wind/lightning style, howling storm. The twister and lightning bolts mixed together and lightning lined the spiraling winds. The electric twister nailed the large snake-like thing in the side. It screamed in pain as its back was torn. The snake snarled slightly as its back started to heal. Hashirama came up next, going through hand signs. Wood style, tree of cremation. A few large trees grew out of the ground and wrapped around the basilisk's body. The basilisk writhed in the wood, trying to break out of the wood. Hashirama then threw a few kunai at the trees. The serpent stopped its struggling when it felt something running down its scales. It looked down to see oil was running down its body. Its eyes widened as it noticed the kunai each had a paper bomb attached to it. Said bombs then went off and exploded. The basilisk screamed in agony as the flames ate away at its scales. Tobirama came up and reached behind his back, taking out a familiar object. It was a small black handle. Tobirama focused chakra into it, and a blade made entirely out of electricity shot out of the top of the handle. The basilisk regenerated from the fire blast. It looked to see Tobirama coming at its side with the electric sword drawn. He also noticed Hiruzen was coming up with a large black staff. The two swung their weapons and made contact with the basilisk's head. Sarutobi's weapon only struck the monster, but Tobirama's tore through its flesh and sent a huge blast of electricity through the serpent's body. The basilisk fell to the ground. As the two landed, Sarutobi turned to Nidame and asked, "When did you get that back? It was stolen so long ago." "Long story short," the Nidame replied. "Before me and Hashirama came, we found the guy who stole it. He thought he was seeing us as ghosts and fainted on the spot. Hell, he even pissed and dropped a load in his pants at the same time." "Oh man, I would have loved to see that," Sarutobi said with an amused grin. "Would have loved to see what?" As the basilisk as it rose from the ground with the injuries to the side of its head healing. "Oh, this guy saw our friends here and he..." Sarutobi then remembered who he was talking to. "Wait, you!" The large monster lowered its head and its third eye flashed. The two jumped away as the purple eye shot a beam that struck a tree. The large wooden structure then turned to stone. "What was that?" Sarutobi asked as they avoided another blast from the eye. "That thing has the power to turn anything to stone with that eye," Tobirama explained. The basilisk stopped firing from its third eye and started firing blasts of acid and venom from its maw. The Kages and ninja avoided the blasts of acid and poisons. Tsunda, Tobirama, and Hashirama all then unleashed storing punches to the ground, causing a mini earthquake. The quake caused the large serpent to fall into the chasm that was created. Then they heard something underground. Everyone looked over the edge and saw the basilisk started tunneling into the wall of the chasm. "Okay, this is getting annoying," Naruto growled. "How are we supposed to kill this ugly cuss?" "I don't know," Minato growled. "I haven't been this frustrated since I fought the Kyuubi." Naruto was thinking of something, then he got an idea. It was risky, but it was something that they had to do. Naruto then, using his hands, signed the plan to the rest of the group. Everyone looked at him like he was insane. After he made a few more signs, they smirked at the idea. The basilisk burst from the ground with a very angry scowl on its face. "If a snake can scowl, I mean." "All right, you little pigs," it growled. "I'll tear you all apart, and there's no one here." The monster looked around for a few seconds until it turned to see Manda rushing at him. The basilisk moved to the side and avoided the cobra's venomous fangs. The basilisk then had to avoid getting blasted with a shot of acidic slime from Katsuyu. The monster dodged to the side to avoid the acidic slime. At that moment, his Gamabunta came and wrapped his tongue around its neck. Or at least his spot that can be considered its neck. "Let go of me, you overinflated frog!" the basilisk roared in indignation. "Hey, ugly!" The basilisk turned its head to see Naruto with a ball of darkness in each hand. Dark style, seeing darkness. The blonde then threw each ball at the basilisk's eyes. The monster let out a cry of anger and rage as its sight was taken from it. "You hairless ape!" the creature yelled in anger. "I'll kill you! I'll kill you and swallow your soul!" The blonde remained silent and he jumped up in their air. He reached for his back for the Reaper kanji tattoo on his back. Once he reached for it, he added some chakra and took out a massive scythe. The scythe was purple. It had a long jagged blade and a human skull with long fangs instead of the regular incisors. Naruto focused chakra into the blade of the scythe. The blonde then jumped into the air above the basilisk. With its neck held and its eyes useless, it couldn't spit out acid or venom, nor could it use the third eye since it relied on the sight of the other two. Basically, it's the scythe harvester from Darksiders. Naruto descended on the monster and yelled out, "Scream harvester! Demonic soul reaping!" The blonde brought down his scythe hard and nailed the basilisk in its third eye. As Naruto fell, a light blue and transparent version of the basilisk fell with him. The blonde then hit the ground. Finally, the basilisk's transparent double faded and seemed to be absorbed into the scythe. The blade then shined green and acid dripped from the blade. Naruto shifted his scythe and sat it on its shoulder. "Very impressive," Orochimaru said. "Thanks," Naruto said. "Now I suggest we head back to the village." "You can," Orochimaru said. "But I can't. Not after all I have done there." "We'll find a way," Naruto said. "Okay," Orochimaru said. "But when this is over, can you do me a favor?" "What?" Minato asked, approaching the new Sannin. "Can you protect me from Anko?" Everyone burst out laughing from that. "No, seriously. I've seen what happened to her do to me." Orochimaru deadpanned with a sweat drop. "Omake, how Tobirama got the Raijin back." Sometime during the wave mission a few miles from Tezuna's village. Aoi Rokushi slept in his tent. He had had a productive day. He had managed to scare off a few people and had managed to kill a few worthless idiots in some town, and he got some girls he could use for entertainment. "Aoi," said a dark, whispery voice. Aoi rose up from his sleep. He looked around and saw that no one else was in his tent. He was about to go back to sleep when he heard the noise again. The man rose up from his cot wearing only a pair of Care Bear underwear. He didn't worry about becoming a laughingstock due to this because he knew that this guy was going to be dead in a few seconds anyway. "Come out, you coward," he said, picking up the Raijin and activating it. "With this sword I am invincible." "One problem with that theory," came the voice from behind him. He spun around and the light form, the Raijin, showed the face of Tobirama Senju. "That's my sword," the man growled in anger. Aoi's eyes went wide in fear. There was a stain forming in his pants. "Boo," was all Tobirama said. The missing Nin felt something plop in the seat of his pants. He then let out a very girly whimper and then fainted. In the world of Isum, the author then ducked a kunai thrown by a female ninja in the room he was typing in. No offense to the ladies. The girl smiled and walked. Back in Naruto world, Aoi hit the ground and the smell of his defecation filled the tent. Tobirama picked up his sword and smirked as he walked out the door. The next day, Aoi became known as the ninja who was in need of diapers. It had been a few days since the invasion. Everyone was managing fine since there weren't very many casualties. However, the area around the arena had been decimated by the basilisk and was still under construction. News of the Kages being alive flooded the village. They were practically assaulted by questions from just about every ninja asking how they were alive. The continuous answer was that it was something that they wouldn't be able to do. Orochimaru had decided that he wouldn't stay in the village. He knew that after what he did, he would be hated by most of the populace. And he really didn't want to wind up getting torn limb from limb by Anko. Before he left, though, he left instructions for the curse mark so Anko could have hers removed. Meanwhile, A and Bu were looking all over the village for Kabuto. It was found out that he was working for Orochimaru while he was still possessed by the basilisk. The medic Nin was currently in hiding. It's unknown where he is now. After the basilisk's death, the sound forces surrendered. They were captured and dragged to a maximum security prison to await execution. What did you expect to happen to captured ninja nutjobs? What did you think they were going to do, bake them a pie? The remains of the Sound Four were promptly cleaned up and thrown away. At the moment, Naruto was in the council chambers. The council had called a meeting to discuss a few things. There were two new faces there, Mocha and Shiki. The two replaced Hamura and Koharu as the advisors on the council since they were more level-headed and the fact that Hamura and Koharu retired after the invasion. They just thought the job was too stressful. Ibiki and the head of ANBU were there too since they had a feeling they would be needed at some point. So what is this about? Naruto asked. We called this meeting, Sarutobi said, to discuss plans for the future. We don't know what else will happen. Well, Sum said, what I want to know is what the heck was with that overgrown legless lizard doing in Orochimaru? My guess is that the basilisk possessed Orochimaru when he started those experiments. Naruto said, despite being powerful, demons can still die. My guess he wanted to find a way to find the keys to immortality. He used Orochimaru as a vessel, so he wouldn't draw the attention of angels or reapers, both of which are easily able to kill demons. That would explain a bit, Hayashi said. But where is Orochimaru? He out of the village, Jiraiya said. He feel like he doesn't deserve to be in this village after the atrocities he performed here. Well, that, and he didn't want to be ripped apart by Anko. He knew how pissed she was at him for doing what he did to her. He'll still aid the village when he has to though. Well, at least all the Sannin are back on our side, Inoichi said, a little relieved that no one had to worry about giant snakes tearing people apart anymore. I want to question something, Mocha said. I heard that Naruto used two incredible weapons at his disposal. I would like to see them. Naruto unsealed Shadow Claw and Harvester. Okay. Dan Higurashi groaned. This is getting weird. How on earth did you get weapons like these? They don't even look like ones that a normal person would have. That's because they aren't, said Tobirama as his brother, Minato and Kushina all entered the chambers. What do you mean? Sum asked. And how in the hell are you four alive? Well, Hashirama said. After we died we went to heaven and became archangels. There we trained in celestial or light jutsu. When we came to get Naruto we took him there so he could train. Wait, Chusa said. You mean those angels from all those years ago? That was you? All of you? Yes, Hashirama said. Personally I feel bad that the village has fallen so far, to be ruled by hate and to unleash it all on a child. It makes no sense to me. The civilian council flinched at the words. Only recently had they begun to think about what happened. They also started to see Naruto as a hero for bringing back all the Sannin and for defeating the basilisk. So Kami let you come back because you deserve to come back, Sum said. That makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Yes, Minato said. He also got some help from Yami and that Shinigami. Whoa, Shikaka said. That would explain why he got those powers shown from all missions he's been on plus the ones shown in the recent invasion. It was also noted that he made use of the Kyuubi's chakra, Shibi Aburame stated. Is there anything you can tell us about that? A lot of you are going to want to sit down for this, Naruto said. First of all, the Kyuubi is no longer contained in me. Silence. What? Everyone yelled. Let me start from the beginning, Naruto explained. First of all, the seal made to trap the Kyuubi had a secondary purpose. It was made to slowly drain away the Kyuubi's chakra until it was to vanish from existence. While I was in heaven training, the holy chakra of the place sped up the process, and now the Kyuubi's chakra is mine and the fox is gone. The civilian council smiled as they heard that they didn't have to worry about the fox anymore. At the same time, they were also reminded of what they did to the boy, and guilt stung their hearts like a swarm of wasps. I take it you have full control over the beast's chakra, right? Sarutobi asked. No, Naruto said, shocking everyone. The energies in heaven sped up the process so my body couldn't fully adapt to it. With the chakra of the beast, my coils expanded greatly at such a rate I had to seal off my power, one seal for each tail. If I used too much of the demon's chakra for too long, I could very well end up destroying myself. Oh man, Inoichi thought. Like they say, Naruto said, great power usually comes with a sacrifice. Now that that is done and out of the way, Sarutobi said, how are we going to deal with Danzo? He still has his root ANBU about. From what Sasuke Uchiha told me, he came to find his girlfriend being kidnapped by one of them. Actually, I don't think we have to worry about that, Naruto said, gaining looks from everyone in the room. What do you mean, Naruto? Sum asked the boy. You'll figure it out in a few minutes, the blonde said, looking at a watch he had on his wrist. Meanwhile, Danzo-sama, said a rude ANBU as he approached his master. There was a package left for you at the door, sir. A package? The mummified man asked with a raised eyebrow. The ANBU placed the package on the desk of the one-eyed leader. The man took out a kunai and as carefully as possible cut the tape that was holding the top of the box shut. When he opened it, he took out a bizarre-looking box. It was basically a small black box with strange gold markings on it. Though it was a box, it seemed to unnerve people. With it came a note that said, "If you want real power, all you have to do is open this box." Danzo smirked under his bandages and started to work on the puzzle box. Back in the council chambers, Naruto had stopped smirking at his watch. "Huh," Naruto said. "The package must have been held back in delivery." "Package?" Sarutobi asked the boy with a curious look. "Well," Naruto said, "the package contained something that was going to get rid of Danzo, but from the sound of things, either the package was late in delivery or he figured out what it was and stopped it somehow." "Troublesome," Shikaka said. "You can't really trust the post office anymore, can you?" "Apparently not," Hashirama said. "Next time you should just send something by a carrier pigeon or a ninja dog." "I'm with you on that one," Inoichi said. A few seconds after that, there was a humongous tremor and the entire room shook. A few people jumped underneath their desk so that they could avoid being crushed by falling debris, and because it was pretty much common knowledge. "What the hell was that?" Tsume asked as she got up from under her desk with her partner Kuramaru. "That," Naruto stated with a small smile, "was the package I told you all about." A few seconds earlier, Danzo had been working on the puzzle non-stop for the past few minutes. After some tinkering, he finally got it done. The puzzle box seemed to move of its own accord, then seemed to turn around, and the images became all jumbled up and weird looking. After a few more seconds of the box doing this, the top part of it seemed to open up. As soon as the box was open, chains shot out and dug themselves into Danzo's head. The mummified man screamed as the spikes of metal dug into his skull. The root ANBU present heard their master's screams and tired to save him, but skeletal hands came up from the ground and dragged them down. The chains in Danzo's head tried to pull him down into the box. He tired to fight them, but their grip was too strong. Plus, whatever was on the other side of those chains was pretty damn strong itself. After a few more seconds of struggling, Danzo was eventually ripped from his seat and into the box. As he was, a dark chuckle came from it. The box then shone bright red before there was a burst of crimson energy that took the entire base and the box itself somewhere else. The result around them was a massive tremor that shook the ground. And that brings us up to now. Back in the council chambers. "You gave him the box, didn't you?" Minato asked, staring at his son. "Yes, as a matter of fact I did," the blonde said with a satisfied smirk. "How did you manage to get Pinhead to go along with it?" Kushina asked. "I threatened to make some very compromising pictures public," Naruto said, making the three-thought-dead Kage's jaws drop as well as his mother's. "You actually blackmailed Pinhead?" Tobirama asked. "And I, though Minato was insane." "I agree with you on that, brother," Hashirama said, shaking his head. "Who's Pinhead?" Ibiki asked. "While I was training," Naruto explained, "I went to the underworld with Yami. I ran into Pinhead, who's in charge of torture and punishment for those who are evil. Unfortunately, he lost himself in his work and broke away, torturing both evil and innocent souls. Yami sealed him away in a puzzle box. If you and your allies find that box, then you get sucked into his plane, and believe me, that is nowhere you want to be. That man can come up with tortures that would make you want to run home crying for you mommy and wear an adult diaper for the rest of your life, provided you survive that long." The way Naruto worded it made everyone pale. Even Ibiki looked a little freaked out by the fact that someone could torture someone like that. "I have something else I want to ask," the head of ANBU stated. "You seem to know how to fight that demon very well. To be honest, I'm surprised. It's like you've fought demons before." "That's because we have," Minato said. "As angels, we fought rouge demons that escaped from the underworld. Demons are usually peaceful creatures, despite what people think, and only attack humans when they're provoked. Some demons," Hashirama continued, "are truly malevolent. They enjoy causing death and destruction. Plus, they get a kick out of the misery and the torture of those creatures that they deem beneath them. Believe us, it isn't pretty." "Sometime while Sarutobi was still a jonin and had yet to be made Hokage," Kushina said, "a few rouge demons escaped, one of which was the basilisk." "What were the other ones?" Shibi Aburame asked. First is some big guy that called himself Godzilla, Minato said, listing his fingers. Second was some 8-headed hydra thing. Third was a sharktopus. A what opus? Sarutobi asked, clearly confused at the term. Sharktopus, Minato said. A cross between a shark and an octopus. Don't worry, the idea really freaked us out too. Definitely, Tobirama said with a slight shiver. Now, other than the Kage's discomfort with the aquatic hybrid, Naruto said, there was also a beast we dubbed the Dino Shark, Super Gator, and Dino Croc. We managed to get all of them over the years since they were pretty weak. The last two, however, were the real powerhouses behind their escape. One of these was the basilisk, right? Shibi asked with a raised eyebrow behind his sunglasses. Correct, Naruto said. The last one is actually a real mystery to us. What do you mean? Hayashi asked the boy. Well, Naruto said, rubbing his chin in thought. This last guy has been caught in the bowels of the underworld for quite some time. They used to say that, before he was beaten, he was almost as powerful as Yami. His name was Samel. What happened? Tsume asked, interested in this. Well, Tobirama said, interjecting. Let's start at the beginning. Heaven and Hell once fought a long war for the earth. Drawn to the conflict was an entity called the Charred Council. It believed that a great power left unchecked would disrupt the balance in the world. Soon both kingdoms came to honor the council's laws because none of them were able to withstand the justice of the council's enforcers. The four horsemen, Hashirama said. Fury, death, strife, and war. Tobirama continued. When the kingdom of man came, a pact was formed. When the third kingdom became strong enough, the end war would begin. In response, 7 seals were made to keep the balance. Unfortunately, an angel named Abaddon sought to break the treaty and kill the leader of Hell. He only succeeded in angering the council. All but one of the seals were broken. War was sent to the earth and blamed for the early apocalypse. For punishment, he was to find all responsible and slaughter them. He did. During this time, Minato said, he met Samel. In order for Samel to help him, he had to gain the hearts of 4 monsters called the Chosen. War hunted them all down and tore the hearts from their bodies. After Samel's power was restored, War went on to kill the last of his enemies. He found Abaddon and then tore the now fallen angel's wings from his back. In the process, the 7th seal was broken and War's allies joined him. A great deal of time later, Naruto said, Samel resurfaced and tried to destroy what was left of the world. He managed to destroy the Charred Council before the horsemen could get to him. The horsemen fought him valiantly, but they couldn't defeat him. They managed to seal away his power and banish him to the underworld where he was under lock and key. After that, the world was reformed. Our world was formed. Everyone was shocked, terrified, and fascinated by the story. How the world ended and how it started was, in all honesty, pretty unnerving. So how did Samel escape? Hayashi asked. Unknown, Naruto said. We suspect that he was able to trick some demon with the promise of honor and power. I have one thing that concerns me, a civilian asked. Why has Sasuke Uchiha's Sharingan changed? Also, how did he get wings? I used Dark Chakra when I enhanced his eyes, Naruto explained. I guess I used enough for him to gain contract with the Ravens. So, a councilman said, the Uchiha clan is now incredibly powerful. Yes, Naruto said, but he has to learn to control his new powers or they could destroy him like mine could. Well, Sarutobi said, any other matters? We still have the Akatsuki, Minato said. Even though they can't capture all the Biju now, they still are an issue just because they are made up of a bunch of S-rank missing nin. We can deal with them when the time comes, Jiraiya said. They still haven't mobilized, so until they start we can't do anything since I have no idea where they're hiding at the time. Any other matters? Sarutobi asked. Meeting adjourned. Naruto, Kushina, and the Kages gladly left the room. In all honesty, none of them really liked the whole meeting thing. To them, it seemed like a bit of a waste of time. I'm going to see Ino, Naruto said. I'll see you guys at home. Okay. Minato said, see you later. Naruto then set out for his girlfriend's house. When he arrived, he noticed that there was a different chakra signature in the building, different from that of the Yamanaka family. Naruto barged in and noticed that the place had been pretty much ransacked with furniture turned over. He found Mr. and Mrs. Yamanaka on the ground. He checked their pulses to make sure they were alive. Luckily they were. Apparently someone had drugged them. Naruto then sensed a few spikes in chakra coming from the back part of the family compound. Naruto charged through the house until he found himself a sight that made his blood run cold. Ino was currently being held with a kunai at her neck by Kabuto. "Well, well," Kabuto said with a sly grin. "Glad to see you finally made it." "What are doing here?" Naruto growled angry at the silver-haired boy. "Simple," Kabuto said. "I'm avenging my master." "Dude," Naruto said. "Get with the times. Orochimaru was being controlled by the basilisk. He was never really your master." "I know that," Kabuto growled out. "I mean the monster you killed. I served what possessed that weak man. I served him, not Orochimaru. You stole my master from me. So now, I'll take away your pretty little girlfriend." Kabuto brought up the kunai in his grip and then brought it down, piercing Ino's chest. Naruto froze as that happened. Kabuto savored the look of horror on the blonde's face. That look became relieved when Ino burst into smoke, revealing it had been a shadow clone. "What?" Kabuto asked, clearly shocked. When did she make a clone?" "Hey, for eyes!" a female voice shouted. Kabuto spun around just in time to take a stick to the face. Kabuto was sent flying into a wall. The spectacled boy rose up and saw Ino holding a pair of tonfa that had small curved blades at the end. "Stay out of this, Naruto," Ino said as she glared at the boy in front of her. "I want some payback on this little punk." "Kick his skull off, honey," Naruto said with a smirk. "Lucky shot," Kabuto said as he rose up from the ground. "You won't be getting that again." "Oh yeah?" Ino asked before she blurred and appeared in front of Kabuto, shocking the boy. "Let's test that theory." The platinum blonde then unleashed a strong kick that knocked the silver-haired ninja through the wall. "You convinced Swanda to train you in her super strength, didn't you?" Naruto asked as he surveyed the fight. "Yep," Ino said, smiling. "I even convinced your mom to give me these tonfa. You little whore," Kabuto yelled as he rose from the hole in the wall. His hands ignited with green chakra and he charged at the Yamanaka heiress. He swung both hands, calling out, "Chakra scalpels!" Ino dodged to the right, then the left to avoid the strikes, then she jumped forward and caught both chakra scalpels with her tonfa. The two then stood at a standoff, both sides not giving an inch. Ino smirked, then using the strength that she earned from her training with Tsunade, launched Kabuto backwards, forming another hole in the wall. "My parents are going to kill me when they wake up," Ino said to herself. Kabuto growled again as he rose up. He glared with white-hot fire in his eyes as he raged at the platinum blonde who was supposed to be a weak fangirl. He charged blindly, not sensing the chakra Ino was focusing into her leg. As Kabuto got close, Ino's leg shot up and... bam! Crack. Thump. Ino's chakra-infused kick came up and nailed Kabuto right where the sun doesn't shine. Naruto winced at the sight of that. Even Inoichi, who was still drugged at the time, winced in his sleep as the sound of Kabuto's balls being destroyed echoed through the house. Kabuto, in the meantime, had a look of absolute agony on his face. He still had that look as he fell down on the ground, clutching his now broken pelvis. "Wow," Naruto said. "I didn't think you would be that mad at him for holding you hostage." "That wasn't for holding me hostage," Ino said, getting a look from Naruto. "That was because he groped me when he was waiting for you to show up. That, and I think he said something about making me his toy when this whole thing was over." "Okay," Naruto said. "If he had any balls left, I'd slice them off and feed them to him." "Yeah," Ino said. At that moment, a bunch of ANBU appeared in the room. "We got word of a disturbance and..." The ANBU started, but stopped when he noticed the prone form of Kabuto on the ground. He said, "Never mind." The ANBU then picked up the body and shoeshined away. It was later revealed that Kabuto had died since the strike had damaged everything from his pelvis going up through body. Even if he had survived, he pretty much had a sex change operation. Meanwhile, in some dark and dreary place, screams of pain and howls of agony echoed through the air as multiple men were tortured. Screams of horror could be heard as people faced their worst fears. You could hear the sound of tearing flesh and blades slicing through the air. In one chamber, Danzo sat over a pit of spikes. His body was bloody as barbed wire was wrapped around his wrists and legs. The Sharingan eyes in his arm and his eye socket had been ripped out and now sat in jars on a shelf a few feet away from his position. In addition, there were multiple small pins stuck all over his body. His slightest movements were painful. "Please," Danzo begged. "This pain is too much." "Pain?" a voice in the dark asked. Danzo rose his head to see a figure walking towards him. In the light, he saw the figure, and immediately wished he didn't. It was a tall figure with black leather clothing. From his suit hung multiple straps that had on hooks, knives, and multiple other sharp objects. The dark kept Danzo from seeing the figure completely. "How dare you use that word?" Pinhead snarled. "Pain has a face. Allow me to show it to you." The man came closer, showing Danzo his face. Danzo's remaining eye widened in terror. The man's head was bleached white. On top of that, his eyes were black and his head was completely covered in pins. "Sir," the man said, "I am Pain." Danzo's tortured screams echoed throughout the chambers. Pain groaned in pain as he clutched the stump that was once his arm. Around him laid the bodies of the Akatsuki and his paths of pain. Around him were a horde of large monsters of varying sizes, most of which looked like decaying corpses or had blue skin, red eyes, armor, and all of wielded axe-like weapons. Before Pain could continue his thoughts, he was picked up by a large behemoth of a monster with tusks and two curved spikes coming off of its arms. Pain was hoisted over the monster's shoulder and dragged over to a spot where he was unceremoniously dropped on his front. Pain used his one good arm to raise himself up off the ground to look up. He immediately wished that he hadn't. In front of him stood a hulking figure. The monster had dark red skin and large orange eyes and huge black horns on its head. It wore black armor that covered half of his chest and his left shoulder. He also wore a black gauntlet that covered his right forearm and hand. He also wore clothes similar tunic and boots that looked like that were made of stone. The thing's most distinguishing feature were its wings. They were near black in color and resembled that of a dragon's, only they were upside down. "So this is the strongest the Third Kingdom has," the monster said. "Such a disgrace. Then again, humans were always pretty weak." Pain broke out of his fear-induced stare and asked in a scared voice, "Who or what are you?" The monster gave a dark chuckle. "I am known by many names. Before my defeat, I was known as Samel." With those words, the monster rose up his right fist and brought it down with a sickening crunch. After crushing Pain's skull, Samel and his demons got out of Ami. Just as they left, Samel turned around and unleashed a huge blast of power. The blast hit the village right in the center. At first nothing, and then kaboom! A huge dome of red energy covered the village, burning every last piece of property and every last citizen. Samel laughed at the destruction before him. Then he and his army turned and left. All the while, a lone ninja watched from a distance. A look of fear was plastered on his face as he watched Amigakure get blown right off the map with one blast. Just as he was about to leave, Samel turned his head toward his hiding place. The ninja started to sweat when he looked at those eyes. Samel then turned away from the ninja's hiding place and walked away. The ninja let out a silent sigh of relief. As soon as the demons were out of sight, he got up and ran for it. He had to get this information to Jiraiya-sama. A few days later, "I'm being promoted to Jonin?" Naruto asked as he sat in Sarutobi's office. "Yes," the old Kage said. "You showed incredible skill under pressure, and you would make a very effective teacher to any students you have due to your experience." Naruto rubbed his chin. He thought about this for a few minutes and said, "Okay." Sarutobi smiled and was about to have Naruto fill out the paperwork for it when, "Sensei!" The shout came from a panicked-looking Jiraiya. The white-haired Sannin busted down the door and fell to his knees, looking both really freaked out and exhausted. "Jiraiya, what is it?" Sarutobi asked with complete concern. "I just got word, from my spy in Ami," the Toad Sage said as he caught his breath. "Are the Akatsuki on the move?" the older man asked. "No," Jiraiya said. "Ami was just wiped off the map a few days ago by a horde of demons." Sarutobi went pale while Naruto's eyes widened. "Samel," Naruto growled as he clenched his fists. Sarutobi rose and said, "Enbi, call the shinobi clan heads, everyone staying at the Namikaze residence, and the new advisors. There is an important matter that we must discuss." A few minutes later, "Sarutobi, why have you called us here?" Sum asked. It appears we have a potential problem in our near future, Sarutobi said. I have just been informed about the destruction of Amigakure at the hands of a horde of demons. The Shinobi Council gasped in shock as the words reached their ears. What's worse, Naruto said, is that the demon leader fits the description of Samel. Minato stared at his son in shock. Samel has finally come out of hiding, Tobirama said with a serious look on his face. It would seem that way, Hashirama said. So what do you think he's up to? Naruto shook his head and said, I'm not sure. The better question is how do we deal with him? Minato rubbed his chin and thought, we could always try to split his power up and seal it in something. Tobirama shook his head and said, that worked once, but only a demon could handle power like that. Last time I checked there aren't any demons willing to aid an angel. Unless, of course, it benefits them in some way. Minato snapped his fingers in frustration. It'll take more than us to kill him when the time comes, Kushina said. It'll take more than out light powers or Naruto's death and dark powers to kill him. Naruto was quiet while he thought. We can't just run up and fight a demon army right out, Hayashi said. That would be downright suicide. Some nodded and said, I don't plan on sending any of my clan members to fight something that powerful. Some may be arrogant, but I really doubt that they can be that stupid. The other clan heads started saying things like this. You know, old man, Minato whispered to Sarutobi. I have to ask, why isn't the civilian council here? Normally you call them too. Sarutobi looked at the elder blonde and said, because they would be screaming and running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Plus, they probably would have requested that the Uchiha go since the Sharingan is supposedly able to suppress demons. 0. Kushina turned to her Naruto and said, Sochi, we haven't heard from you. Naruto looked at his mother with a serious look on his face. I was thinking, we can't face Samel or his army alone. I never thought I would have to say or even think of doing this, but we have no choice. We need to resurrect the 4 horsemen. Everyone stared at Naruto with curious gazes. Well, the clan heads with curiosity. Minato, Tobirama, Kushina, and Hashirama looked at him like he was crazy. Naruto, are you crazy? Minato asked. You know that the horsemen were too strong for the Charred Council to control. What makes you think we can control them? Naruto chuckled and answered, that's the thing. Won't try to control them. The Charred Council thought that they had complete control over the horsemen, so they let their guard down when they betrayed war. We don't have to control them. All we have to do is reach a bargain. Minato paused to think about the idea. It was still crazy, but it just might work. I guess it could work, Minato said. But how do we know that they won't turn on us? We don't, Naruto stated. All we have to do is kill Samel, and they can go back to doing whatever it was they did when they were destroyed. Minato shook his head. You really are my son, Minato said. Because only I could come up with something that insane. Let's do it. Tobirama and Hashirama nodded in agreement. Kushina reluctantly agreed since she was still slightly unsure about the plan. All right then, Naruto said. We have a few gods to talk to. With that, the Namikaze/Senju family left. Are you sure that this is a good idea? Kushina asked, still unsure. Don't worry, Mom, Naruto said. It's a good idea. Later, in a higher plane of existence. It is a bad idea, Shinigami said with a motionless tone. You too, Naruto groaned. Why does everyone think that reviving the 4 horsemen is a bad idea? Yami stepped up and said, because we have no idea what would happen when the horsemen are revived. Naruto groaned. Look, these guys are the only ones who were able to beat Samel before. Besides, though I know paradise waits for me after death, I don't want to go on a suicide mission. Sorry, kid, Kami said. But we are not doing it. Naruto hung his head and thought, I didn't want to use this, but I have no choice. Naruto then looked up with a pair of puppy dog eyes. Please? He asked. No, Kami repeated. Please. No. Naruto. Really, now you can't keep that up forever. Yes, I can dash. Fine. Well, do it already. Naruto threw up his arms and yelled, Hoo-hoo dash. Kami groaned and said, You can stop now. I wish I could. But I'm stuck, somebody help me dash. Bonk. Shinigami came over with a big stick and bashed Naruto over the head. Thanks, Naruto said as he rubbed his head. And ouch. Later, Naruto, Kushina, Minato, Hashirama, and Tobirama stood a distance away as the three gods stood around a large seal with the word punishment in the middle. I never thought we would have to bring them back, Yami said. I'm with you on that one, sister, Shinigami said. Kami held up her hands and said, Ancient spirits of vengeance and punishment, we call on you. Shinigami raised his hands saying, Dark forces rise. The third kingdom is in peril. Yami raised her hands saying, We call on the spirits of the four ancient enforcers to aid us. All three then yelled, War, strife, death, fury, rise horsemen. The three beings then launched blasts of energy into the seal. The seal started to shine bright gold, black, and purple. Then out of seal burst four skeletal hands. Four skeletons rose out of the ground before red, purple, black, and white energy surrounded the three. Then there was bright, blinding light. Kami, Yami, and Shinigami both stepped away from the seal looking tired. Naruto, Kushina, and Minato caught them as they almost fell. As the light started to fade, four figures were becoming visible. The first figure was female. She stood tall with pure white skin, long purple hair, and pale, slightly yellow-colored eyes. She was covered in brown and gold-colored armor that fit her figure very closely, and the breastplate showed she was well grown in that area. Some of her armor went up to cover the sides of her head. In her hands she held a long whip that seemed to have fire burning along its length. The second figure was just as tall as the woman and male. He wore armor that covered every last part of his body, including his neck. He had a light purple cloak that covered his shoulders. On his waist were two strange, large, L-shaped objects on his waist. The armor on his arms made the almost look mechanical. His head was covered by mask similar to Kakashi's, except it covered all his face, and the part on his forehead jutted out and had a symbol carved into it. It didn't cover his eyes, which were a bright yellow. The third figure was also male. He seemed to have the most imposing figure, however. He was tall with pale skin and flowing black hair. He wore a black cloak that covered most of his body, only it was open, allowing them to see him. He had a skeletal yet muscular build. He wore a tunic over his legs that had bones decorating them. If they could see under his cloak, they would have been able to see a pair of scythes with short handles and long blades. The man's face was covered in a pale mask that covered his face completely, only showing two red eyes. A raven flew in from out of nowhere and landed on his shoulder. The final figure was the largest of them all. He was a male that was completely covered in armor. On his shoulders he wore a red cloak that covered his shoulders and had a hood up. Out of hood bits of silver hair came out, and in its shadow you could see a pair of pale blue glowing eyes. On his back was a huge sword that put Zabuz's to shame. It was just as long as Zabuz's, but the blade was wider, and it had the images of faces in anguish carved into it. Another feature that stuck out was his left arm. It consisted of a gauntlet that was completely gray with a skull-like face on it that glowed yellow. The four looked around confused. What is going on? The one with the sword asked before noticing the angels in front of him. Who are you? Naruto stepped forward. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. This is my father Minato, my mother Kushin, and two friends of the family Tobirama and Hashirama. The one with the sword said, I am War, rider of the red horse. The skeletal one said in a voice that sounded like a shallow grave, I am Death, rider of the pale horse. The bird is my partner Dusk. The woman stepped up and said, My name is Fury, rider of the black horse. The one with the yellow eyes walked up and said, I am Strife, rider of the white horse. Naruto grinned and said, Welcome back to the world of the living horsemen. War stepped forward and asked, Why have you brought us back? A great deal of time has passed since your destruction, horseman, Naruto said. An old enemy of yours has come back, a monster by the name of Samel. War's fists clenched. Fury's eyes narrowed. Strife and Death's eyes narrowed behind their masks. We need your power in this upcoming battle, Naruto said, stepping forward. Will you defend the third kingdom? Will you fight with us? The horsemen huddled together for a few seconds and then stepped up. Death then stepped to Naruto and held out his hand and said, If it means getting payback at Samel, we will fight with you. Naruto took the man's hand and shook it. Now then, Minato said, I suggest we head back. You should see how the Third Kingdom has changed over the centuries." With that, the four angles and the horsemen vanished. Kami, Yami, and Shinigami stood back. "That went better than I thought it would," Shinigami said. His sisters nodded in agreement. Back with the human world. There was flash of light and Naruto and Ko appeared along with the four horsemen. "That was interesting," War said as he shook his head to try and clear the cobwebs. "Hey Gaki," Zabuza called as Haku, Sasuke, and Ino entered the room. "What's going on dash?" He stopped in mid-sentence when he saw the horsemen. "Hey, who are the guys from the circus sideshow?" Zabuza asked, not knowing who he was talking to. Dusk flew from Death's shoulder over to Zabuza and started pecking and scratching at his face. "Wah!" Zabzua screamed. "Get it off me! Get it off me!" Zabzua ran away with his hands on his head to try and stop the bird from pecking him so hard. "Nice bird," Haku said as she watched her father run away. "Thank you," Death said. "Naruto-kun, who are these guys?" Ino asked her boyfriend. Naruto then went into a lengthy explanation about the destruction of Amigakure, who was behind it, and who the horsemen were. At dinner, everyone sat together as Ino tried to digest all the information given to her. "So you guys are like ancient enforcers who got stabbed in the back by your boss?" Ino asked as she ate. "That's one way of putting Strife," said, as he stared at his still food-covered plate. Zabuza was sitting with them, but was looking warily at Dusk. The raven was actually giving the swordsman a glare. "Why don't you and Death eat?" Zabuza asked. "You have to be hungry." Death looked at Zabuza and said, "Our metabolism doesn't require as many meals as a human. Besides, me and Strife's faces aren't that pleasant to look at. Me and my little brother have both been viciously scarred in our years of battle." Minato swallowed the food in his mouth and asked, "Is that what happened to War's arm?" Death looked at the Namikaze and said, "Actually, that was me." Everyone stared at Death. "I was a very defiant person when I first became a horseman," War explained. "The council sent a small army to apprehend me. I beat all of them. Eventually, I fought these three. During the battle, Death defended Fury, and in that moment sliced off my arm to teach me my place." Haku gulped. "Sounds a little extreme." "Extreme? Yes," Fury said, "but necessary." After that, they ate in silence. Ino had to go home because she still had a curfew despite being a ninja. She gave Naruto a kiss on the cheek and headed home. As she left, Strife walked up to Naruto and said, "Kid, you better hold on to her. She's a keeper." Naruto elbowed Strife and went up to his room. Everyone went to bed. Well, almost everyone. The horsemen stayed downstairs and slept there. Since they were used to being ready for combat, there was no need for them to get comfortable. Meanwhile, Samuel sat on a large rock. His eyes were glowing a bright red before fading to their normal color. "So the angels have brought back the horsemen," he thought. "No matter. When the time comes, I will slay them myself. Me and my generals." Samuel turned to the right as the shadowed images of four monstrous creatures rose up and snarled. The hidden rain village. Just recently it had fallen to the wrath of the ancient demon Samuel. Now all is lifeless here. Nothing but a destitute area full of destroyed building. Only someone with a great hidden treasure would come here. That is just what one man is doing. In the destroyed area, a lone figure walks. A figure was tall and had on an orange mask with one single hole in it. He also wore a black cloak that had red clouds on it. "Curse that monster," the man bitterly thought, "forcing me to use the Azangi like that." The man then found the building in the center of the destroyed village. He smirked under his mask before slamming his fist into the ground, causing it to rumble. The ground then parted, revealing charred and burned bodies. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out 7 pieces of paper. He placed them on the bodies and went through hand seals. Ancient art, body restoration. The flesh on the bodies slowly began to heal. After a few minutes, a man who was shark-like in appearance, a man with orange hair and piercing, a man with silver hair, very tall dark-skinned man, a woman with long dark blue hair, a man with long blonde hair, and a guy with red spiky hair were visible. The man removed his mask, showing that one of his eyes was black. The other was a red with 3 comma-like marks in it. The man reached up and plucked out his black eye. He then reached down and picked up orange-haired man. Using his fingers, he opened the man's eye, revealing eyes that were purple with black rings in it. He then plucked out the eye and placed it in his eye socket. The man blinked a few times before looking down at the man with his new eyes. He then threw the body into the air and then went through hand signs before launching a huge fireball at the body, destroying the body. The man then pulled out some rods and placed one in each body. He went through hand signs and the bodies laid motionless. Then their eyes snapped open, revealing that they had the same eyes he had. The bodies rose up and looked at the man. "Now all I need to do is seal that creature inside of me," the man said. "After that nothing, not even the bijou, will be able to stop Madara Uchiha. Ahahahahahaha." The man looked around and whispered to himself, "I have got to stop doing that." Meanwhile in Konoha, War glared at Naruto. Naruto returned the glare. The two stared each other down. War clenched his armored fist. Naruto cracked his knuckles. The horseman and Naruto's family watched anxiously as the two faced off. The two charged at each other and swung one arm forward, and they both yelled, "Rock, paper, scissors." Naruto laid his hand down flat while War had his hand clenched into a tight fist. "Paper beats rock," Naruto said with a smirk while War looked frustrated. "I do not understand this game," War said. "What is the point of this?" Naruto looked at the horseman and said, "I told you it's a game of skill. You need to predict the move of your opponent and then you counter it." Death simply raised an unseen eyebrow and said, "Really? It seems pointless to me." "I agree with you on that, brother," Fury said with a nod. At that moment a loud bang was heard as the front door to the manor was busted open. "Hey Naruto," came the voice of Kiba Inuzuka. "Old man Hiruzen wants to see Dash." He stopped when he saw Fury. He put on a charming face and said, "Hello beautiful. What's a pretty hot babe like you doing in a place like this?" He then became aware of War's sword being pointed at his head, Strife's guns pointing at his heart and left lung, and Death's scythes aiming at his crotch. "What were you saying about our sister?" Death said in a tone that promised pain. "And nothing," Kiba stuttered, obviously scared. "Calm down boys," Fury said. "He was just paying me a compliment. By the way, I'm not on the market. Try someone else." Naruto then looked at Kiba and said, "By the way, don't you have Hinata?" Kiba blinked a few times and said, "Yeah, but she hasn't really tried anything yet." Naruto rolled his eyes and said, "Be patient. Kurenai-san really should have just taught you patience." Kiba just growled and walked away. "Well, you heard him, people," Naruto said. "Let's go." A few minutes later, "Hey old man, you wanted to see us?" Naruto said as he and his friends walked into the Hokage's office. "I did," the old man said. "You see, Naruto, I have sent a message about this Samel to the other countries in an attempt to gain allies in our inevitable fight against him. The Kages have decided for the sake of their villages that they will help us." Naruto smiled and said, "That's good, right?" Sarutobi shook his head and said, "You would think so. Things are tense between the villages anyway without this upcoming madness. I need to tell you this. Do not make any enemies with the other villages." Naruto looked hurt and said, "You wound me, old man. You think I would purposely pick fights with the other villages?" The old man looked at Naruto sternly. Naruto groaned and said, "Fine, I won't pick any fights. But if somebody pisses me off, I make no promises." Minato shrugged and said, "Good enough." Many hours later, Naruto and company, the horsemen included, waited outside the negotiation room. Naruto looked worried as for a while there had been a lot of shouting, yelling, and the sound of a great deal of damage being done in the room. The Kages had arrived a few hours ago and negotiations for the threat that was Samel had begun. Needless to say, the people were skeptical after a while. At least until he revived Yondaime presented himself. Needless to say that Tsuchikage was going to kill him on the spot if not for both of his bodyguards holding him back from killing the man. After that, Minato presented them with what the great demon could do and how he was a threat to everyone. Obviously, the idea of sealing him inside a newborn came up, but the idea was quickly squashed. Samel's chakra was far more malevolent than that of a bijou. On top of that, he was much stronger, meaning he could easily break the seal and kill the newborn. After a few more hours of shouting, the Kages finally came to the agreement. When Samel was sighted, the Kages would mobilize as much of their forces as they could help vanquish the demon. A few of them were skeptical of the plan, but they decided to along with them. Better to have a stupid plan than no plan, right? With that, the Kages left the room. Naruto and company stood outside waiting. Well? Naruto asked. The Sandaime answered, the Kages have agreed to mobilize their forces at the next sighting of Samel. Do you really think that this will help? Naruto nodded and said, we need to be united against this freak show. Trust me, it's the best thing right now. It's better than getting slowly killed off, isn't it? At that moment, one of the Tsuchikige's bodyguards, Akatsuchi, saw War and laughed. Hey buddy, what's with the big sword? He mocked. You trying to overcompensate for something? He laughed up until the air left his stomach. War had rushed forward at an inhuman speed and made the overweight man double over in agony as his armored fist slammed into his stomach and he was backhanded away and crashed into a wall. Akatsuchi moaned in pain and gasped in terror as Chaos Eater was slammed into the wall just to the side of his head. If you wish to see the upcoming War boy, War growled, you would do best to hold your tongue. The IWA ninja was close to wetting himself as he looked fearfully into War's pale, angered eyes. Death placed and aimed a scolding glare at his younger brother and said, calm yourself, brother. You know that some of the humans of this world are arrogant and full of themselves. You, boy, should learn to hold your tongue when you don't know the full measure of a person's strength. Akatsuchi nodded his head quickly. War sent one last glare at the IWA nin before backing up and pulling back his sword. He heard a surprised voice. He turned to see Tenten and Chojuro staring at his sword in awe. Is there something I can help you with? War asked impatiently. Oh, it's nothing, just admiring the sword you have, Chojuro said. Tenten nodded in agreement. War slid the weapon on his back and said, the man who forged our weapons was a great master of the forge. Sadly, we don't know what happened to him. Naruto approached War and said, it's okay, big man. Now then, let's head home. We go at lot of stuff to plan for. War nodded and the group headed back to the Namikaze complex to plan for the upcoming war. Meanwhile, a great distance away, Madara rose up from the ground. It hadn't been hard to track Samel. The demon's incredibly tainted chakra could be sensed for miles around if you knew how to look for it. Madara and his Paths of Pain had found Samel's army and, with their new powers, started slaying demons left and right before they reached the big man himself. Once he faced Samel, however, it was a different story. The demon had actually enjoyed the fight and was toying with him. The demon easily crushed the paths despite their different powers gifted to them by the Rinnegan. Madara had fought his best and now he was in pain. He glared up at Samel with his bloodline eyes. Samel smirked at the man. You have proved yourself entertaining mortal, Samel said. In light of this, I offer you a choice. Join my army and aid me in bringing this foul world to its knees. Under normal circumstances, he would have accepted such an offer. But he couldn't accept it. He knew that ultimate power was at his fingertips. If he could just trick this creature and seal it away, he would gain control over all the demon's powers and its entire army. I must decline your offer, Madara said as he rose up from the ground. Then, it is time to die. Power focused in Samel's hand and he fired a huge blast of tainted and dark power. Madara screamed in agony as his flesh was obliterated. Samel smirked victoriously as he stood before the ashes of the amusing human. Suddenly, Madara faded into existence behind Samel. The only difference now was that his Sharingan eye had gone completely black and even his Rinnegan looked a little bit weaker. The demon was too slow as the man yelled out, "Great demon sealing!" A seal appeared on Madara's chest and on Samel's back. Slowly Samel turned to dust and was sucked into the Madara's body. The demon cried out in absolute fury as he was sucked into the manic Uchiha. After the sealing was done, Madara laughed insanely as he felt incredible power coursing through his veins. He grinned evilly and was about to order a demon when he felt it. Pain. Excruciating pain. He screamed out as the seal on his body started to crack. Suddenly there was a flash of bright red and Samel fell to his knees in front of the downed form of Madara. The great demon looked at his claws. Fury burned in his eyes as he gazed at his hands. He felt weaker. The sealing had taken a substantial amount of his power. He turned his furious eyes to Madara. He growled, "You, how dare you try to steal my power?" Samel stormed over and stomped down on the man's head, effectively killing him. Just to be sure, though, he blasted the body with energy until the body was completely ash. "Stupid human, Samuel spat as he sat on his throne, which was carried by demons. He stole some of my power. No matter, even with some of my power gone, I'll still be strong enough to end the horsemen. With that, Samuel and his army marched on, with their evil eyes set on the horsemen and the angels. Samuel and his army slowly made their way towards the village of Konoha. While he and his army marched, a pair of Konoha Jonin were watching. "We have to get back to the village," one whispered. "We need to warn to village." The other one nodded before the pair rose up and started running. Samuel's dark eyes turned in the direction of the two retreating ninja. He would have sent a soldier or two after them, but decided against it. He would allow the horsemen, humans, and angels to know he was near. It would make his upcoming victory all the sweeter. A few minutes later, Tsunade sighed in relief. She was almost finished with the last of her paperwork. It was a good thing too, because she was starting to hallucinate that the paperwork was actually starting to mock her while she was filling it out. She finished the last piece of paper. She leaned back in her chair and sighed. As she popped the cork off a bottle of sake, a pair Jonin burst into the room, startling her and making her crush the bottle in her hand. The woman looked on at the destroyed bottle before she let out a low growl and glared at the pair before saying through gritted teeth, "This had better be good." The left Jonin said, "We spotted that great demon and his army marching towards Konoha a few miles past the border." The busty Kage's mood changed from angry to serious in a matter of seconds. "How far?" the woman asked. The second Jonin answered, "About 2 hours away, coming from the east." The Kage ground her teeth in frustration. Shiten made a motion with her hand and yelled, "Anbyu!" Almost immediately, a group of masked ninja appeared. "There is an army of enemies approaching the village from the east. Send word to all the able-bodied ninja and get them to the main square in 30 minutes. Then get all civilians to the shelter. And tell Kakashi if he is so much as 1 second late, I will castrate him with a rusty spoon, and then burn all of Ika Ika in front of him." The ninja nodded and vanished in bursts of speed. Swanda then summoned a slug. "Yes, mistress," the slug asked. "I need you to send a few of your messengers out to Kumo, Iwa, Kiri, Taki, and Suna. We will need all the bodies we can throw at this." Less than 30 minutes later, all the Jonin, Chunin, clan heads, and Anbu stood in the square. The horsemen stood at the back waiting for the reason that they were called. "We have an unprecedented danger ahead of us," Swanda announced. "An army of demons is coming this way, headed by a monster by the name of Samuel." The horsemen heard this and clenched their fists at the memory of the evil monster that they had fought all those centuries ago. Tsunade continued, "We will be facing powerful enemies today, ancient demons that the world hasn't seen in centuries. I don't have to tell you that most of us may not make it out of this alive. We have to fight to protect our village. We have faced madmen and creatures before, and we've come out on top. Are we about to let a bunch of walking sideshow freaks take us down?" The Leaf Ninja responded, "No." Swanda asked, "To the last squad, to the last man, to the last kunai. We will fight." The crowd cheered as they hoisted their weapons. Then they left to go prepare for the upcoming war. War turned to Naruto and said, "She is a very persuasive woman." Death nodded and said, "I wonder if she is a descendant of Uriel." War glared slightly at his older brother for bringing up the woman who had caused them a lot of trouble in the past. He would have smacked his brother upside the head if it wasn't for the fact that he might lose his other arm. Meanwhile, the villages got their messages from the slugs and were mobilizing their forces. They even got out their own personal weapons, as they called them, to aid in the upcoming battle. After gathering what forces they could, the messenger slugs called on some much larger slugs to transport them. Despite their reputation for being incredibly slow, they slither at an incredibly fast pace and made it to Konoha within an hour. As the Kages stood ready with them were surprising guests. The Jinchuriki, all the remaining 8. With the Tsuchikage were Han and Rashi, the 5- and 4-tailed Jinchuriki respectively. With the Reikage were Yujito and Karabi, the 2-tailed and 8-tailed Jinchuriki. With the Takikage was Fu, the 7-tailed Jinchuriki. With the Mizukage were Yagura and Utakata, the 3-tailed or 6-tailed Jinchuriki. Finally, there was the new Kazakage Gaara, the 1-tailed Jinchuriki. Naruto faced the Jinchuriki and said, "So these are the other Jinchuriki. For some reason I thought that this would be more interesting." Rashi grinned and said, "Oh, really? I wasn't really thinking that I would have to deal with some yandere wannabe. Rashi continued to smirk until he felt somebody glaring at him. He turned around to see that actual yandere standing there. The redhead and Han looked shocked and backed away. Remind me not to get on the little man's bad side, Han whispered to Rashi, gaining a nod from the bearded man. Okay, Naruto said. I suggest you guys start stealing your nerves because we are going to have one monster of a fight on your hands in about a half an hour. Karabi stepped up and said, You little man, you got some plan? 'Cause I ain't gonna wind up dead. Especially when dash. Yujito walked up and slapped the man over the head before growling. Stop it with the rhyming thing already. Naruto raised an eyebrow and said, He talks in rhyme? Yujito sighed and said, Unfortunately. Naruto rolled his eyes and said, Man, that must get annoying. Yujito answered, It does. At that moment the Tsuchikage said, The kid has a point. Now get ready, you little runts. I want to get this done and over with before my back starts acting up again. Han and Rashi rolled their eyes behind their leader's back. How is he a Kage exactly? Fu whispered to Rashi. I'd guess he won out due to seniority or popular vote, Rashi whispered back. The rest of the villagers from Konoha and everywhere else got ready. Within 20 minutes their enemies stood before them. A massive army of demons and monster varying in size. From ones the size of a full-grown man to the size to ones that would be able to crush an ox in their hands. In the middle of it all sat Samel on a throne made completely of bones. The shinobi got their weapons ready, as did the demons. With the shinobi, Death asked, Do you feel it, brothers and sister? Something has changed. Strife nodded and said, Yes, I can feel it. He's a little weaker. Some power-hungry human must have gotten lucky. Fury nodded and said, It may give us a chance. War brought out Chaos Eater and said, If not, we will go down in a blaze of glory. Samel rose up from his throne and said, Humans, angels, horsemen, I suggest that you surrender now. Your deaths will be swift and painless. Fight and you will die slowly. Swanda cracked her knuckles and said, What do you think, Hornhead? Samel glared at the woman for the insult. He smirked and said, You have a fire in your woman. Perhaps I will spare you. I will be needing a queen when I rule this earth. Kill them all. The demons charged while their enemies did the same. The creatures met and the sound of blades hitting flesh and the sound of falling blood could be heard. Cries of pain could be heard as well. The horseman went straight for Samel, making him rise from his throne and fly off to a different part of the battlefield. To think this is how we would meet again, horseman, the betrayer of heaven said. The horsemen hefted their weapons as War said, I had a feeling that we would end up doing battle again, Samel. This time, though, we will kill you. Samel flexed his claws before the former enforcers of the Charred Council charged at him. Back in the fight, Naruto was using Angel's hand to slice down one demon after another. One tried sneaking up on him from behind just in time to take a gold katana from Kushina. Get your ugly hands off my boy, jerk, she yelled. The sound of explosions rang through the air as the Kages unleashed their power on their enemies. Demons were burned alive by lava and boiled alive by the Mizukage. Others were pounded into the dust by the Tsuchikage's powers. Gaara was making good use of his sand by crushing demon after demon into oblivion with his sand. The Raikage was making short work of his opponents with his incredible strength and lightning powers. Tsunade was pretty much doing the same thing minus the lightning powers. Yujito was launching hellfire from her mouth to barbecue her enemies. She was also making good use of the Nibi's chakra. Yagura was using his water powers to keep his opponents at bay and lightning abilities to fry them. He was also making good use of his hook staff and demon chakra when he could. Rashi was basically melting the demons alive with his yotan and the chakra from the Yanbi. Han was actually suing special steam jutsu to actually steam his enemies alive. To be quite honest, it was actually effective. Utaka was actually quite the fighter. He was able to use multiple water jutsu to his advantage to crush, pierce, and utterly annihilate his enemies. Most of the demons underestimated his bubble jutsu, but that wound up coming to bite them in the butt when they exploded with the force of a pair of exploding tags. Fu was keeping above her enemies with her flying ability, not to mention the use of a specificity and powerful acid that she was able to expel from her mouth. Right now she was fig-ting a bunch of giant bats, but the fight was going her way. Karabi was utilizing strength like the Raikage. He managed to blind his enemy with a blast of ink before firing a huge blast of lightning. He even used the chakra to destroy a few of them in one blast. As the Kages were fighting demons and humans were being killed left and right. As the fight waged on, there were piles of bodies. Mostly human bodies, because when the demons were destroyed they were turned to dust. Humans, however, just fell to the ground. Despite the demons having the advantage in strength, the humans made up for that with incredible speed and the highly destructive jutsu. On the other side of the fight, Minato was using some very effective light jutsu to vaporize some of the demons. Kushina was firing water, lighting, and light jutsu left and right. Hashiyama was using light and wood jutsu to crush his opponents. Tobirama was using his hardened water jutsu to tear through one target after another. Okay, this is really starting to get on my nerves. Anoki, the Tsuchikage, said. How many soldiers are in this freak show's army? Mei, the Mizukage, answered. I don't know and I don't really care. Naruto cut down another demon with Angel's hand and growled. Okay, this has gone on long enough. Hey you guys. Time execution order number 3. The other angels nodded before they jumped back and went through a great amount of hand signs. Minato, light style, solar blast. Kushina, light/lightning release, holy storm. Tobirama, light/water style, holy water flood. Hashirama, light/wood style, wrath of Eden. Naruto, light style, flash cannon. Minato fired a stream of light from his hands. Kushina fired bolts of pure gold lightning from her hands. Tobirama formed holy water from the air around him and sent a huge flood of it outward. Hashirama formed massive glowing roots before sending them towards his target. Naruto fired balls of energy, large balls of light from his hands. The resulting explosions tore demons apart or turned them to dust. After a seconds of this, most of the demons were dead. Smoking parts fell to the ground before they slowly dissolved into ash and dust. Naruto panted slightly and rolled his shoulder in an attempt to loosen up his arms. Okay, I have to admit that was pretty awesome, Fu said from her position with a look of complete shock on her face. Now I really don't want to be the one to piss these guys off, Rashi said. I don't want to be on the receiving end of one of those light jutsu. At that moment there was a huge explosion from the distance. Everyone looked in the direction. A huge column of fire burst up from the ground. A figure flew up from the background and landed in front of them. Samel, Naruto growled, seeing the monster. It was quite obvious that the horseman had lost. However, Samel looked like he had better days. His left eye was gone, leaving a dark red socket. His right horn was cracked, he was bleeding from the left side, had multiple bullet wounds, and had a flurry of cuts and gashes all over his body. The monster glared at the humans and angels before him and growled. The horsemen have failed you. Your so-called ace in the hole hasn't helped you at all. Now it is time to reveal my ace in the hole. The large demon slammed his fist into the ground, forming a large crack. There was a loud rumbling. Out of the crack rose 4 monstrous creatures. They were a huge 4-legged bat, a large insect-like creature, a giant worm with massive teeth, and a giant spider. Tiamat, Griever, Stygian, Silitha, Samel gloated. The 4 chosen of the destroyer. They will be your destruction. Naruto smirked and said, Hey big man, did you really think that we would reveal our hand this early in the game? If you do, then your age has finally gotten to you. Samel glared angrily at the boy. If you want to talk about an ace in the hole, might as well show you ours. Naruto flashed his hand, showing an intricate seal on it. He then blurred through a great deal of hand signs. The seal on his hand flashed red before he slammed it on the ground. Ancient Revival Sealing Art. Revival of the 9. The seal on his hand spread throughout the immediate vicinity. A small glow came over the normal people, giving them a light blue glow. With the angels, it gave them a golden glow. Naruto had gold, purple, and black around him. Suddenly the glow turned red. A brown glow came across Gaara, purple around Yujito, sea green around Yagura, darker red around Rashi, white around Han, light green around Utakata, really light blue around Fu, and electric color around Karabi. The Jinchuriki then started to groan before writhing in pain. The Nin groaned slightly as the chakra was ripped away and started to take shape. After a few minutes they stopped. There was a glow of chakra. After a few minutes the glow was gone. When it faded there were 9 figures. The first was female by the obvious shape of her body. She wore light brown armor and a hand-log brown hair and yellow eyes with small diamonds surrounding the pupil. She had a small pair of gourds on her belt. Around her eyes she had makeup that made her eyes resemble that of a raccoon. On her back was the kanji for 1. The second was also female. She had black hair and a long purple battle dress. Her eyes were a light purple and the pupils were slit. On her hands were gloves that formed claws similar to that of a cat. On her left upper arm was the kanji for 2. The third was a tall male figure. He wore a dark blue and green ANBU outfit. His eyes were green with dark blue hair. On his left arm was a shield with serrated blades on the edge. The inside of it resembled a turtle shell. On his right arm was the kanji for 3. The fourth was tall and muscular. He wore a red and black armor with a pair of brass knuckles on his hands and a large hammer hefted onto his shoulder. He had onyx eyes with red hair and a long beard. On his hammer was the kanji for 4. The fifth was a tall and lean man. He had long silver hair and green eyes. He wore mostly black and gray armor with a mask covering his mouth. In his left hand was a long spear that had what looked like a long rope of dog hair. The glove that had the spear in it had the kanji for 5 on the top. The sixth was a large man. He wore what looked like an old-style soldier outfit complete with camouflage. Unlike the others, he was bald and had slime-green eyes. On his belt were a bunch of balls filled with slime. The seventh was a man covered head to toe in armor that resembled that of a beetle. A pair of yellow eyes could be seen from the visor on his helmet. On his left arm was a long spike that resembled a large curved stinger. The eighth was tall with dark skin and was very muscular. He wore a long pants with sandals and had a large belt with a silver buckle that resembled the head of a bull. He had no shirt, revealing his large muscles. On his waist was what looked like a sketch pad and a pen. On his back was a large zanbato-like sword that looked like it was made up of 8 different jagged blades. The final figure wore black and red armor covering all of his body with metal binding covering his throat. His gloves had claws and there were curved blades on his feet and the back of his heels. He had short red hair and crimson slit eyes. On his hip was a long katana. The ninth man rubbed his head and said, "Oh, my head! What hit me? Wait! I'm alive!" The first woman looked at the ninth man in shock and asked, "Kuin, is that you?" The man turned around and asked, "Ichi-chan?" Naruto panted from the exertion and said, "Welcome back to the land of the living guys." Realization hit the humans around them like a ton of bricks. These were the 9 Bijou. "Naruto," Tsunade said, "I thought you said the Kyuubi was dead." Naruto looked at the blonde Kage and said, "He was. The seal I used is capable of bringing a being back to life or release them from bonds just as long as chakra is available. I still had its chakra in me, so I was able to use it." Samuel was currently a bit nervous as the Hachibi looked at him. "Well, well," Hachibi said. "Look what we got here. Who brought out this old dinosaur?" The remaining Bijou turned their attention to Samuel. "Didn't see this coming," Ichibi said. "Kid had a good reason to bring us out," Kyuubi said. "What do you guys say we show the old-timer here how a real demon fights?" There were voices of agreement around him. Naruto stumbled a few steps before Minato stopped him. The elder blonde said, "You are in no position to fight after using that jutsu, young man. Rest for now. We'll take care of the big bad freak shows." The angels then stood beside the 9 Bijou. "Best family reunion ever," Kyuubi said as he drew his katana. With that said, they charged. Ino held Naruto as she watched the fight unfold in front of her. She, along with the others, stood by and watched the massacre. The 9 Bijou charged at the surprised Samuel while Minato took on Silitha, Kushina fought Tiamat, Tobarama fought the Griever, and Hashirama fought the Stygian. As the fight progressed, it showed that the Bijou were just as strong in human form as they were when they were giants. It was also seen that each Bijou had the same powers given to the Jinchuriki. For example, whenever the Kyuubi was hurt, his body healed almost instantly at an incredibly fast rate. The fight with Minato and Silitha was pretty much big flashes of purple and yellow from the pair teleporting around so much. When they weren't flashing all over the battlefield, Minato was dodging the brood mother's massive teeth and claws. Kushina was basically just having to deal with dodging the blasts of fire from Tiamat. She also had a bit of a disadvantage since Tiamat mostly stuck to the air to fly, and since she was running low on light chakra, she couldn't fly up to meet her. Hashirama was mostly just dodging the underground surprise attacks from the Stygian. Luckily for the first Hokage, the attacks were pretty easy to predict since the ground always rumbled before the giant worm burst from the ground. Tobirama was easily managing to dodge the Griever's laser blasts. Unfortunately, he learned that the giant insect monster was actually much faster than it looked. He also had to deal with dodging its large mantis-like arms. Okay, Kushina growled. I like a good fight and all, but this is really starting to get annoying. Kushina dodged another one of Tiamat's fireballs before she turned to the vampire queen and yelled, "Hey, why don't you come down here and fight me, you overgrown flying rodent?" Tiamat screeched in indignity. She flew down just as Kushina had hoped that she would. She red-headed Kunoichi jumped up and caught onto her left wing. She then climbed up and, focusing chakra into both of her swords, cut the great bat's wings off. Tiamat screeched in pain as her wings were sliced off. The vampire queen caught herself on the ground before she charged again. The great vampire swung her claws at the female angel in hopes that she would be gutted. She was proved wrong as the female angel dodged the attack and jumped to the side. She swung her swords again, this time cutting through Tiamat's front leg. The vampire queen fell onto her side. She looked up and was about to try and make a bargain when Kushina said, "Don't bother. You weren't able to make a deal with war. What makes you think you can make a deal with me?" Kushina then silenced the vampire queen by stabbing her through the skull. Tiamat, her removed wings included, turned into ash before everyone's eyes. Tobirama jumped to the right to avoid the Griever's attack. He took out the Raijin before stabbing it into the giant insect's leg, sending a large amount of volts through the giant bug's body. The monster screamed out more loudly than normal. Tobirama let go of the blade before he charged forward and focused all the strength he had into his left fist. He swung hard and punched the crystal mound on the Griever's stomach. The crystal held for a second before it all shattered like glass, revealing a soft part underneath it. The Griever's weak point. The giant insect managed to know the Raijin out of its leg before bringing its massive arm down on Tobirama. The second Hokage managed to dodge the attack before coming in and punching the Griever's soft spot. The giant insect stumbled a bit before the Tobirama went through hand signs and said, "Light style, flash." There was a bright flash of light as everyone around them covered their eyes. The Griever screamed again before it stumbled backwards. Its mantis-like arms covered its apparently existent eyes. Tobirama then focused his chakra into his hand and punched the Griever's leg, breaking it and making the large insect fall to the ground. The silver-haired Senju then went through some last few hand signs and said, "Water style, hardened water drill." Water formed from the air around him and formed large drill before it shot forward and pierced the Griever's soft spot. The drill exited out through the monstrosity's back. The beast stood still for a moment before blood leaked from its mouth. The beast then fell on its side before it evaporated into dust. Hashirama was dodging another sneak attack from the Stygian. The massive worm had pretty much been doing the same thing over and over again. The elder Senju was sending multiple roots at the massive subterranean monster, but they did nothing to hurt the creature since it apparently had a very thick hide. "How am I supposed to hurt this monster?" the elder Senju thought. He was brought out of his thoughts when the giant worm attacked again. Just as he dodged, a flurry of water balls slammed into the Stygian. He looked to the side to see his brother with his hands outstretched, meaning he was the one who fired. The Stygian screeched in fury. It was then that Hashirama was struck with inspiration. "Hey, fish bait," Hashirama yelled, completely out of character. "Come over here. I got something for you to snack on." The giant worm turned its head and charged at the elder Senju. Hashirama prepared himself and then jumped up just as the Stygian surface entering its mouth. "Brother!" Tobirama yelled as he saw his brother get swallowed. The giant worm burrowed back underground. Tobirama wa Aobu Tot go after the giant monster to avenge his brother's death. Suddenly the ground rumbled and shook. Then a great blast of gore shot from the ground, and a huge tree that had pieces of the worm's flesh stuck to it rose up from the spot with Hashirama on top. "Rest in pieces," Hashirama said. Hey, the Gaki was right. Making wisecracks is fun. Tobirama face-palmed at his brother. A scream of fury alerted the two brothers to the fight between Minato and Silitha. Minato dodged a strike from the brood mother's claws. The fourth Hokage ran up the monster's arm before he slammed his fist into the side of the spider's face. The massive spider stumbled a bit before she teleported again. As Minato landed on the ground, he looked up to see the giant spider above him. The arachnid fell to the ground. Just as she was about to land, Minato vanished in a flash of yellow. Silitha's eyes strained as she tried to peer through the smoke. Minato then burst from the smoke, forming a Rasengan in his hand. The elder Namikaze slammed it into the spider demon's face. The spiraling orb ground into Spider's face. The arachnid stumbled backwards as she clutched her face in agony. Minato then yelled, "Now!" A flurry of Namikaze clones appeared. Each one threw a flurry of kunai. Each one hit the giant spider before the seals on them burst into multiple seal that stuck to the spider's body. Minato then formed a hand sign and growled, "Destruct!" Each seal on the brood mother glowed slightly before they exploded with tremendous force. The brood mother stumbled backwards with blood coming from the blasted areas on her body. There was a yellow flash above her as Minato appeared above her again. This time he formed a massive Rasengan in his hand. "Eat this, you damn bug!" Minato yelled as he slammed the massive chakra-based attack into Silitha's head, obliterating it. The arachnid's body fell to the side before it evaporated into dust. "There you go," Minato panted as he rubbed his sore arm. Another explosion brought his attention to see the bijou surrounding an obviously scared Samel. "Wait," the ancient demon said. "You shouldn't be fighting me. We should be fighting the humans. They imprisoned you, treated your hosts like dirt. Together we could prevail and wipe these pathetic humans off the face of the earth." The bijou stopped as if they were thinking. "Sorry, Hornhead," Kyubi said. "Even though getting back at a few of the humans in the world would be nice, killing you will be all the more satisfying. Hit it, people." Ichibi focused her power and huge columns of sand burst from the ground and wrapped around Samel's left arm. Sand burial. A huge amount of pressure was added to Samel's, crushing it and severing it from his body. Nibby appeared next to the great demon and slashed her claws across his chest, leaving bloody marks. The cat demon then growled, "Hellcat fireball!" A jet of purple flames launched from the cat's mouth and singed Samel's flesh. The ancient demon walked backwards with his flesh stinging from the intense heat. Sanbai appeared, swinging his bladed shield, forming a large gash on Samel's back. Sanbai's shield started to glow as he yelled out, "Demon Shield Blast!" Yuki concentrated on the shield center before it fired, nailing Samel in the chest, making the demon cry out in pain before he was knocked off his feet and straight into a boulder. Just as Samel was rising from the ground, the Yanbi appeared next to him and said, "4." Samel was then reminded of the ancient human sport called golf as he was launched into the air. The Yanbi then growled, "Lava Blast!" The monkey demon unleashed a blast of hot lava from his mouth, and that struck Samel's leg, permanently damaging the appendage. As the ancient demon fell to one leg, he was then grabbed from behind by the gobi. The man was then knocked to the ground and had one of his wings ripped out. Samel's scream was cut off by a louder one as he felt the dog demon shove his spear into his back. Before he was thrown off, the dog demon said, "Thunder bark." The man let out a noise that sounded like a big dog's bark. A large bolt of lightning shot from his masked mouth as it struck Samel, making him scream even louder in pain. Samel managed to drive his one good leg into the ground just in time to catch a kick to the face by the slug demon. The impact shattered his left horn. Another kick followed, destroying his other one. The slug demon then took a ball of slime and yelled, "Acid slime!" The ball of ooze struck Samel's chest and he immediately screamed in pain as the vile liquid ate away at his flesh. He fell onto his side. He was then grabbed the beetle demon. "Don't die on us yet, man," the armored man said. "We're just getting started." The beetle demon's blade tore through Samel's shoulder, slicing off his last good arm. He was then sent flying by a powerful right hook that knocked out a bunch of teeth. The bug man then growled, "Buzz kill." Insect wings came out of the man's back and started to flutter at an incredible speed. Soon Samel was screaming in agony as incredible waves of pain tore through his body by the sonic waves that the wings were emitting. When the noise stopped, he was immediately kicked in the ribs and then knocked into the air by the eight tails. "Ink blast!" the bull demon yelled. A blast of ink was shot from his mouth and nailed Samel in the eye, making him scream. The bull demon then swung his sword, causing all 8 blades on it to launch and fly through the air before piercing multiple parts of Samel's body. Samel's screams of agony echoed throughout the nations. Finally, Kyubi ran up and slammed his fist into Samuel's one remaining knee, shattering it like glass. As his last useful limb was destroyed, Samuel fell to the ground. Kyubi growled, "Fox fire." Light blue flames shot from the Kyubi's fingertip, setting the ancient demon ablaze, making him scream in pain. Kyubi then grabbed Smail and threw him up into the air. He then drew his katana and jumped up after him. Focusing Yuki into the blade, Kyubi swung it down, splitting Samuel in two, causing a huge explosion. Kyubi looked up at the fireworks before letting out a victory roar. The other Bijou joined him as the humans shouted in victory. In his sleep, Naruto smirked. Samuel was finally dead. Epilogue. After the end of Samuel, things were pretty much back to normal. Everyone returned to their villages with the Bijou from their village in tow. Needless to say, a lot of people were shocked and very ashamed of themselves when they saw that their Jinchuriki and the demons they had hated were separate beings. Needless to say, the Jinchuriki were given a lot of apologies. Speaking of the Bijou, news of their power reached the daimyos, and they now serve as their bodyguards. Since nobody would try fighting a Bijou, most transactions now went peacefully. Naruto eventually married Ino, and they are now raising 3 kids. While Naruto was overjoyed when he found his wife was pregnant, he really couldn't have done without the mood swings. Lee and Sakura married a few weeks after Naruto and Ino did. While Lee didn't get to teach their children about the springtime of youth, much to his horror, he was allowed to teach them taijutsu. Just so long as he didn't tie them to a post and beat on them like his teacher did to them. Chuji wound up marrying Ayam. When Tuchi found out, he was excited that a fan of his cooking was going to be his son-in-law. Word of Ichiruka's cooking actually spread through Mission. The Akamichi went on. Ichiruka Ramen is now a nationwide chain. Sasuke and Haku married and are now have 3 kids. The youngest being twins, one having the ice bloodline and the other having the Sharingan, while the third has both. There was a lot of competition in the family, but they still managed. Hinata dated Kiba for a while until Kiba's hormones and canine nature got the better of him. When Hinata found out Kiba was on the bad end of a Jukin-enhanced slap to the face and a few well-powered groin stomps. That was nothing compared to what Hayashi, Hanabi, Sum, and Hana did to him when they found out. Kiba tried to get Hinata back, but all he did was getting a restraining order. Hinata is currently dating Shino. Shikamaru wound up tying the knot with Temari. Though if one looked hard enough, you would have seen that he had a ball and chain wrapped around his ankles courtesy of his mother. He also had poison blades at his back and sand prepared to crush him courtesy of his new in-laws. Gaara, after becoming the Kazekage, married his secretary. Gaara also became like an uncle to Naruto and Ino's children. Kankuro pretty much remained single because his habits and look freaked out a lot of girls. Tsunade eventually stepped down and let Naruto take her place. She is now staying with Jiraiya, who has dropped most of his peeping habits since Tswanda threatens to pound him into dust should he ever try. Everyone else lived on and in peace.